OKC's the best team in the West. They are. But even without those three guys for the majority of the game, they're still the number one defense in the NBA. Yeah. And so the Warriors got a little taste of, I think, their own medicine from that standpoint because they've been putting clamps on people late, and they just could not get a shot off. I think they might have gotten two good looks in the last 5 minutes of the game, and one was a Kuminga fadeaway, which he missed. One was a Kuminga driving layup that he missed. And then after that, it took a Hartenstein basically Olay to just give Draymond a dunk when 19 seconds left. That was like they couldn't get anything on that team.
That was everything you needed to know. That was OKC in a snapshot, and it was also sort of everything you needed to know about the Golden State Warriors. That it's a team that without Steph Curry, they have a hard time scoring, especially against somebody like that of OKC. And then that last play of the game, which was just, because despite everything that you just laid out, you
still had a chance.
Yeah, and perfectly designed play, as they often are, with Steve Kerr, ATO. And sure enough, there it was. Wiggins pops free. And I think Wiggins just rushed it thinking it was a buzzer beater, and he had more time than I think that he realized.
Yeah, there was a couple things there. Well, number one, he had like 5 seconds left. He went up fast. And then, the game was over anyways. They had no timeouts. Then he didn't foul. Like, SGA got the ball with like 4 seconds left. He went to the free throw line with 1 second left. So they didn't foul. But you didn't have a problem with Kuminga not being in on that last offensive possession? When all you need is two?
No, because the play design was so perfect. And in that last possession, it popped, it worked. And so if, it was a matter of, it had nothing to do with Kuminga or anybody else for that matter. It was Draymond Green who drew the double team, who had that perfect sort of lob pass to Wiggins, and Wiggins had a step on his guy. And it was just so tantalizing, right? That ball was just sort of, the pass, first of all, was sort of looped to him, and you're just like, oh, God, get it in his hands and get it up. And then he rushes things in sort of that awkward with his body motion going in the opposite direction, having to shoot across his body, all of this within 3 feet from the hoop. And I think if he's able to catch, gather, pump fake, either draw a foul or hit the bucket. But Hartenstein was closing, so you never know. But I think the play design was perfect, and I don't think Kuminga really factored into any of that.
Well, we're officially on YouTube, Dan, so you got to say hi to the people. Everyone chiming in. YouTube, Twitch, powered by First Norcal Credit Union. 888-957-9570 is the number. Also the number for the Comcast Business text line. Evan Giddings, Dan DeVoe, and Warriors this week from 9 to noon every single Saturday. People are already chiming in, from the 415. How come it seems like Andrew Wiggins is constantly missing little bunnies around the rim? Well, that's something he's done before, but I think that Wiggins has not been nearly an issue this season. The problem is that in those, I guess, tight moments or the down the stretch spots, because you mentioned something about it without Curry. I still think they struggle offensively down the stretch, even with Curry. And we saw that against San Antonio. Now, they were pretty fatigued. They played 3 games in 4 nights. Against Brooklyn, they scored enough. They had 28 points in the fourth quarter. They just gave up like 40. But even with Curry, they still struggle in the half court down the stretch because I think teams can just blitz Steph. And there's really nobody else that's going to kill you, at least at this point. If Wiggins, how many players on the Warriors right now can go for 30 points in a game?
Aside from Steph?
Yes.
It's just Wiggins and Kuminga, and that never happens.
And Wiggins has had 2 30-point games in the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
So that's...
I don't know that you need 30. I don't know that you need, Paul, again...
Well, Dennis Schroeder had 31 on Monday.
I get it, but I'm just saying I don't know that you need necessarily... I think to your point, not to bring up Paul George or any of the big names, you don't need necessarily someone to give you the 30 points. You just need someone who's going to be a consistent scorer, sort of in a mid-range, or somebody who's going to be able to get his... And it doesn't necessarily have to cross you over and get to the rim, but just somebody who's got some wiggle who can get off a jump shot. And it's not Buddy Hield. Buddy Hield is clearly, he's demonstrated to everybody that he can be a good shooter, obviously, and he's a streaky shooter. He's the pure definition of a shooter. It's like when he's got it, you just feed him, and then you just enjoy the party. But in order for him to get that shot, it's off of pin downs. It's catch and shoot. He's a pure definition of catch and shoot. He's not as effective. If he's got to step back and work you to get in to that jump shot, if he's going to sidestep, that's a low percentage shot for him. Other guys you feel comfortable about doing that, but not Buddy Hield. So I think the player you might be describing is somebody that doesn't necessarily have to be a star, but is somebody that is going to give you some consistent points and do it without the not necessarily needing that wide open corner jumper or the gravitational pull, as we always throw around, that Curry provides, but just simply somebody who has a suffocating defender but is able to give you a little wiggle and get that jumper off. You would like to think it's Podziemski, but I don't know what the hell's going on with him. What's his three-point shooting percentage? It's below 20 now. I want to say it's in the teens. I think he's at either 18 or 19% from three, which is absolutely ridiculous. And I don't want to lean on the young guy.
19.7.
And Draymond's right, but that's staggering. And you need him. It's getting to the point where we understand you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself. We know how hard you worked in the offseason. Everything Draymond laid out, I think we're all on board with. But now, as I said, as we get 20 to 25 games into the season, Podziemski scoring and the lack thereof becomes a real sort of problem going forward.
He's not the worst shooter on the team.
Oh, no. Is there somebody worse?
There's somebody shooting worse from three-point range than Brandon Podziemski.
What's Kuminga?
It's not Kuminga. Get off Kuminga.
From three?
From three.
Somebody that's playing with...
And it's not a trick question. I wasn't going to throw Trace Jackson-Davis in there.
Oh, no.
He hasn't attempted a three.
And it's not Kevon Looney.
It's not Kevon Looney.
Oh, yeah. Kyle Anderson's struggling, isn't he?
He's shooting better than Podziemski.
What's he doing?
Well, he's shooting in the 20s.
But somebody's lower than Podziemski?
Someone's lower than Podziemski. This guy actually shot it really well from three a couple of years ago.
Peyton.
It's GP2. Yeah, GP2 is right now shooting 18.8% from three-point range.
That's crazy.
But it does put into perspective just how effective he was shooting the three when they made a championship run. Like he's not a good shooter, and he's not a player that anybody respects when he takes a three. But if he makes enough of them, in 2022, he made 36% of his threes. That's probably a little bit below league average. But if he can make one a game, you can basically steal 3 free points. And it doesn't feel like there's anybody on the Warriors that is doing enough to draw a defender out on them outside of Curry, Buddy, and Wiggins. Wiggins is shooting pretty well from three. Because Draymond even is a player that when he shoots well, he doesn't command attention.
Here's why I would give you some, I'm sorry to revisit the Paul George conversation, but this is why you can make an argument. And even though I will stand pat that it's the wrong thing to do for this team. But here's the argument, is that I think that in situations like this, Paul George can go get you a bucket. Paul George or one of those star free, I don't know about Lauri Markkanen, but just for the sake of this conversation, a player like that of Lauri Markkanen's skill set can ISO, have someone up on him, and then just simply get to his spot. And they don't have that other than Steph Curry. And that was the one reason, and probably the biggest argument for giving up a lot of equity to go get that superstar. It's for exactly what it is that we experienced the other night.
888-957-9570 is the number. Evan Giddings, Dan Devona, Warriors this week. Let's talk to Dave in Alameda. Wants to get into the Warriors and the Cup. What's up, Dave?
Hey, guys. Good morning. First-time caller, long-time listener.
Oh, my man.
I just wanted to say absolutely agree with what everyone you guys said. I was fortunate actually enough to go to the Warrior game when they played OKC, and I absolutely noticed everything like you guys said. This offense seems stagnant at times. Nobody could get a bucket, and that seems exactly what they need. So exactly bringing up to your point about like Paul George, and even now that I saw on Twitter this morning about guys like potentially like Vucevic becoming available, that's just something that I think that we definitely need, because there's just simply times when the ball is not moving, the ball is not going in the hoop, and then that simply just leads to no buckets, and simply that leads to the runs where we just go down like, 15-0, 8-0, 20-0, and then the game becomes impossible. I just wanted to call in and say that I love listening to you guys and really appreciate it.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. Shout out to Mita. I'm going to be there later tonight. You ever been to the island?
Alameda Island?
Yeah.
I have not. The home of Ray Ratto? No, I am not familiar with it. I don't leave the city unless I'm going to the airport.
Dude, you can go across the bridge without a passport. You're not going to get pulled over.
Why? What's out there? I mean, I'm a homebody, man.
Oh, there's a fantastic... Well, there used to be a great winery right on the water, but Alameda's a beautiful place.
That's what I understand. I mean, it's apparently very expensive these days.
It's got a better beach than you guys.
Yeah, see, that's why I draw the line. Now, that's exactly why I'll never venture on that Bay Bridge.
Well, you don't have to worry about king tides. You don't have to worry about getting bit by a shark. And you got to worry about trash being in the water. But the Alameda beaches are nice.
So it's literally an island? And are you accessing it via a causeway, or how are we getting there?
Yeah, you have to go through the Webster Tunnel, or you have to go over the bridge down by Fruitvale.
Okay. And what happens on the island?
There's action.
All right.
Oh, I'm just trying to tell. I'm trying to expand your horizons. I feel like as an East Bay kid, it is my duty to try and bring you to my side of things because...
I'm like Woody Allen. Woody Allen never leaves New York. He stays in his neighborhood.
Well, that makes a little more sense. New York is a bit bigger than San Francisco. I hate to break it to you, but it's a little larger, a little nicer, a little more attention to detail. I do love San Francisco.
If I don't hear a siren, or if I don't hear a cabbie with a strong accent just absolutely screaming at somebody, if I don't have a homeless person urinating on my front steps, if I don't hear that dog barking next door to me and I go outside and it's complete solitude, I freak the hell out.
Why are you taking cabs still?
I'm not saying I'm taking it as I walk and do whatever it is that I do. Hey, by the way,
God love everyone that listens to our show, but how are taxis still in business?
No, well, you know what? Shout out to the taxis. I mean, they've taken the biggest punch in the jaw. So while everybody's in a Waymo or doing Uber and getting their Uber Eats, there's the poor taxi SOB trying to still make a living on that yellow cab or the checkered cab. And my hat's off to him. And if I got to go from point A to point B, hello, cab driver. That's not true. I don't even know how to get a hold of one of those guys.
Yeah, do you flag them down? I feel like that's what I see in every 90s movie.
You want to give me can I give you my whistle over the air of how to get a cab?
Sure.
Really? Hold on.
It's your show.
That's good radio right there.
Sound like me trying to get the attention of my dog.
Can't do it.
Oh, my God. Well, all right. First of all, the Warriors' offense looks like they've been in a Waymo for the past 3 weeks. But those things got to go. Waymos need to die.
Why?
Dude, you can't have a driverless car that is afraid to make a left turn at a yellow light. They hold up everything. They don't make turns at paces requisite to human. Like it doesn't work. And the fact that they've also been able to, they have technical difficulties.
Yeah.
They've broken down. They hold up everything, and they're just gross to look at. I'm sorry. I don't like Waymos. Carter Chickering, Big Chick, has been trying to get me to get in one of these things. He's like a walking advertisement for these monstrosities that are killing our city, your city. And I'm sorry, I'm just sick of it.
You can stop asking that question.
I think that they're the few. I'm on board. I'm not a big Waymo guy, but if it becomes driverless cars, that's the future. Sign me up. That's the biggest stress in my life. You remove driving from me, hell yeah. And plus, I don't got to worry about that bozo who's going to cross over 3 lanes or somebody that's going to just, be that idiot on the road, that everybody's sort of at that same trusting. I'd put my hands in the future in robotics and technology as opposed to you and I.
This is why our civilization is going to crap. Because for comfort and, I don't know, not even a peace of mind. Like you're handing your life over to an unknown entity into I don't know, not even a conscious being. You're giving it over to tin.
Yeah.
And you're cool with that?
I am. Listen, driving is so stressful. If I don't have to do it, why would I?
So
Let's
you can
go.
control things? So you
The
can.
best is you get in the backseat of a Waymo and you're like, hey, driver, can we stop by and maybe pick up your sister and, bring her in the backseat for a good time?
Yeah, well, okay, I was just going to say some foul things happen in the backseat of Waymos. You need to know that.
Really?
Every single time that you get in a Waymo, I've only heard this from experience. I've never been inside a Waymo. But you need to double check with a black light.
Oh, God.
Everything
is it like a
that
hotel?
happens. No, I'm just
Is
telling
like
you.
a Motel 6?
Well, they don't exactly clean them that often, from what I've been told. So, yeah, keep that in mind next time you step in the backseat of a Waymo and you want to
Well,
scream at
that's
a
true
driver.
for any cab or any public transport.
No, but at
Why
least in a
Waymo?
cab, you have someone that can regulate what is going down in the back seat.
Oh, I got you.
Well, especially if there's leather, you might be able to clean it yourself.
I'm sure that there is some sort of, with the technology today, I'm sure, like,
You're
if
far
you
too
were to do
trusting
some
of
sort of
technology.
illicit behavior, there would be warning, hands off, hands off.
See, the problem is, all right, we're going to hit a break, get back to the Warriors in a minute. The problem is, I think that your generation has grown with so much technological advance that you've just had no choice but to lean all the way into it. You don't actually consider the ramifications of how blindly you trust technology.
Absolutely.
You guys you guys made Terminator.
If this is the end of us, let's go.
Well, it's not the end of you. It's the end of me.
You know what's funny is I saw a Waymo down at the Dolphin Club. Early shout out for the Dolphin Club in the first half hour, but it's really, where did we get that?
I don't know. We've had it for the Miami Dolphins have been harpooned.
The hell with the Dolphins, man. That's for my DC references from this point forward. Oh, by the way, man, can we just play tabs for Jersey Ken
Yeah, why not?
and Tua? But I see it's on Jefferson Street where the Dolphin Club, and it's this weird dead end. It's really difficult to get to. And so a lot of people like to take Waymo there. And Waymo, and I just sit there and I watch and giggle because Waymo has a hard, really difficult time of trying to navigate how to get out of there. And it gets to this point where it goes forward, it backs up, it gets forward. And then when it gets really desperate, it like gently starts to honk its horn and go, like, help me. Like, oh, Waymo, you didn't figure this one out?
You're just toying with Wally. I mean, you're just messing around with this car that is nothing to offer society outside of a couple of honks and a 16-point turn. Okay, Warriors this week rolls on next on Warriors on a 95-7
And you will see
game.
me in the next segment on YouTube.
We can see you right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you've been on for the last 15 minutes. That's what. Okay, you trust a Waymo, but you don't trust the camera. Dan Devone, Evan Giddings, Warriors this week, 95-7 the game. less is more. I feel like that's what we talk about every single time during commercial
Well, you
breaks.
know how I feel about sports broadcasting.
Well, we're both passionate about it. After this show, I'm going to go over to St. Mary's first women's basketball home game, our first telecast of the year. So looking forward to that. Dan will be holding down Warriors Live for you, Warriors wrap-up. And I just think it's a different challenge than what we do right now. Broadcasting, whether it's on radio or television, is different than sports talk. It's a different muscle that I enjoy flexing.
Yeah.
And I know it's a muscle that you enjoy discussing.
Well, sports talk radio, television broadcasting, sports casting is entirely different. It's a separate animal and a completely different talent level if you want to be a good play-by-play person. So what it is that you're doing is really there's some connective tissues, but it's an art form almost onto itself. And I think it's difficult to master. It's why it's the few and far between that I think get to that network level, the Joe Davises of the world. But it's one that really does. I'm sort of like, Jerry Seinfeld is really into not only his comedy, but comedy generally speaking. He loves to talk about comics. He loves to talk about how they're just sort of this subculture and what inspires them and how different they are from everybody else. This is why if he ever goes to a party, he immediately gravitates to another comedian. He can find them because they sort of have this weird code. And I think that sportscasting is sort of the same way. When you get to that play-by-play level, I think it's the people that master it, it's like a Van Gogh, man. It's art unto itself.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Seinfeld because one thing that I've always really enjoyed, he was talking about comedy, and I think it applies to what we do in some place. Basically, he was talking about, the movie There Will Be Blood?
No.
Okay, so there's a movie called There Will Be Blood with Daniel Day-Lewis, and it's about, I think, late 1800s. It's about the oil boom. And so this guy's a miner, and he's trying to find oil. And the opening scene, it's a classic Daniel Day-Lewis movie where it's as much about the dialogue as it is about, I don't know, the faces that he makes, just the scenery, the setting, and kind of the grit that accompanies a movie of that era. And in the opening scene, he is mining, and he's just chipping away, and he's just digging and digging, and he's hitting this rock over and over and over again, and you're wondering in your mind, like, well, God, this opening scene's like 10 minutes long. He's been hitting this rock for what feels like 3 or 4 minutes, and just a long time. And Seinfeld said that that's his favorite scene in the entire movie because that's what comedy is. You hit a rock over and over and over again, and he kind of spits on the rock, and he kind of looks for it, and then he throws it away because it's no good. That's what it's like trying to create a joke. You hit it over and over again. You spit on it. You see if there's something there, and then you either toss it or you put it in your pocket. And I feel like sometimes that's what we do on radio because, maybe you run into a fun segment. We're stumbling about and talking, airheads talking about the Warriors or the Phoenix Suns who they play tonight. But sometimes you kind of stumble into something that a listener out there might find really entertaining. So I identified with that.
That might be the most poignant thing you've ever said to me. That sums it up. Yeah, and it's sort of what it is I think that you're doing right now is that you're a comedian, and while you may not be necessarily at Las Vegas frontlining at the MGM Grand, you might be still at Silly's off of Broadway. Well, no, you're not there,
but
you're getting your reps in, and you're honing a craft, and you're just polishing that rock, and eventually, and this just comes with age, you'll get to that point, and I have no doubt in my mind that you will. But that's exactly what it is that I think you're doing to a certain degree. Although I don't think you were making that analogous to you.
No, I mean, it's just something that I identify with. But I also enjoy talking to you about it, whether it's on or off the air, because you've been there, you've done this.
Well, I've never done play-by-play.
No, but you've experienced...
I'm just somebody that's opinionated.
Yeah, but I also identify with the play-by-play broadcasters that you talk about, the ones that you enjoy. And we differ on some guys, but I can understand why you like particular people and why you don't, and it has to do with the opening to this segment, less is more.
When you said you were talking about a show where somebody was finding oil or looking for oil and striking oil, I thought you were talking about the Beverly Hillbillies, which I know predates you. Hey, Granny, move away from there. California is the place you ought to be. So we packed up the bags and moved to Beverly Hills, that is. Movie stars.
God.
You have no idea who the Beverly Hillbillies are, do you?
No, I don't. I was watching, what was I watching last night?
Their star, Max Baer, either he or his father was a heavyweight champion boxer.
Oh, that's a name I do know. Yeah, from boxing. Yeah, Max Baer.
Yeah.
Was he the guy that Jack Dempsey beat in Cinderella Man?
That I don't know.
Well, the only reason it's on my mind is that I was watching. Yes, thank you. Count the bucket. I was watching Gladiator the other night because I'm going to
The new one.
Well, I'm going to go see the second one. I wanted to watch the first one.
Strong reviews for that, huh?
And people liked it.
Wow.
But the first one is an all-timer.
Yeah.
And
I'm with you.
Well, and Cinderella Man's also a Russell Crowe film. So I was just kind of going through and
James J. Braddock, by the way, not Pat and Dempsey.
Damn it.
All right.
Oh, that's right. Dempsey was a different 19.
Dempsey used to have a huge, very popular restaurant right down in Times Square in New York City. And, I have a friend who always tells the exact same story. He's getting a little older. So, old people the first sign of aging is when they repeat the same story. I'm like, bro, you just told me this like 2 weeks ago in the exact same spot.
But sometimes they tell it better. Like there's different.
They're honing their craft.
Basically, like you ever met somebody, and I promise we'll get to the Warriors in a sec. You ever met somebody who talks about a fish and each time they tell the story about them catching the fish, it gets bigger.
Yeah.
Like that I think that's a skill. That is something that not everyone can do, is to better the story every time you tell it, because that's why someone wants you to tell the story. They've probably heard it before.
Well, good storytellers typically will embellish. That at some point you have to say, okay, there's an element of truth in there somewhere, but there's also a lot of liberties that this person takes. Because usually somebody that likes to tell stories and is good at storytelling takes liberties with the truth. And you have to sort of step back and go, okay, the truth is in there. I just got to find out where exactly it is.
Well, it's funny because the story that I will be telling from Wednesday and embellishing over the course of time is, and we talked about this yesterday, Jake and I, is the irrational confidence that I saw on the face of one Pat Spencer. Did you see him get a technical foul on Wednesday?
He did?
He got teed up in his first real run of the season. Now, if that isn't somebody that believes that he should be a player that is not the 15th man on a Golden State Warriors team, and I don't know what is. Pat Spencer, he's not a bad player, but the fact that he was in the game, number one, I thought was, wow, okay, let's see what this guy's got. And then he goes down the lane, rises up, tries to draw some contact, doesn't get the call because he's Pat Spencer and he's wearing 61 on his back, runs down the court and berates the referee to the point where he just looks at him and gives him the little T. Technical foul, free throw, other end. It was really funny, actually. I couldn't stop laughing.
But, on a serious note, why you're seeing him? I think that it just speaks volumes to what it is sort of what we were talking about in the first segment, that when Steve Kerr looks down his bench, and now that Steph Curry's out, there's no DeAnthony Melton. Who are your backup point guards? Chris Paul is no longer in the building. It's like he's stretched. How comfortable are you seeing, Kyle Anderson and Draymond Green running the point? I know Podziemski's got his issues, so I guess he could play the point, but there's a lot going on there. He's looking for somebody because Steve Kerr, at the end of the day, what Spencer does, if you can get to the paint, flash the paint, what is it? Every NBA does the exact same thing. Flash the paint, kick, swing, swing. Flash the paint, kick, swing, swing. So if you have somebody that can ball handle, make the right pass, you're going to play for the Golden State Warriors, especially if I've got no Melton and I've got no Steph Curry available. The Warriors, the minute I saw him, I was like everybody else. I was scratching my head like, what the hell is Pat Spencer getting burned for in this game against OKC? And then I began to think about it. It's like, well, because who else are you going to go to? I think that there is a depletion in terms of guys who can just simply cross the timeline, handle the basketball, and be able to kick it to the right guy.
Well, and this isn't something that was just against OKC. Again, these are some issues that I think the Warriors have. It doesn't mean that they can't be a good team. Like, again, I reiterated this yesterday. They're 12-6. They're still on pace for 55 wins. All right, even if they don't win that many games, they're still a good basketball team. But like you mentioned, there are things we're beginning to recognize about this squad that are weaknesses, that are deficiencies, and that were covered up by the win-loss record. Now against not even the best teams, OKC, I don't know if they exposed them. It's hard to evaluate any game without Curry. But it's the first game they lost without Steph. That's notable. They're 3-1 without him. The loss to San Antonio, I think you saw some issues. The two losses to the Clippers even earlier in the year, you could see where ball pressure really hurt a team that doesn't have a lot of guys that can handle the rock. One of the reasons why I think they threw Spencer into the game is because Podziemski, Wiggins, and Kuminga all in the first quarter against the Thunder had their pocket picked. Like, they could not take care of the ball. And so while Pat Spencer, I don't think is a game-changing player, the fact he was able to get to the paint, swing it to the corner, just a lot of driving and passing. And that's what they don't have a ton of.
No.
I mean, Podziemski isn't a guy that can break you down off the dribble. Curry can, but if you double team him or if there's a longer guy, sometimes he struggles. The Warriors, where I think trouble me most, is the fact that their point of attack, offense and defense, seems to be pretty inconsistent.
What's the one thing that we had talked about is that while this is so exciting playing 13 guys and winning games, and I do think that there is a recipe there, and I do think that the Warriors are going to be competitive throughout the entire season, but we said we got to see more of this. We just have to let this play out and see if there's some legitimacy to all of this. And there are two things that have jumped out to me, and we knew about this going into the season, and that is the 3 games in 4 nights for the Warriors this past week. And you saw it against San Antonio in that Steph Curry and Draymond Green, when they have to play back-to-back or play a rash of games in a short period of time, as is often the demand in the NBA, they can be exposed. They are clearly not the same players on a back-to-back on the road. And we hadn't seen that until a week ago. And the Warriors are clearly vulnerable. And that's what happens when your best players are 35 and 36 respectively, soon to be 37. That's going to be a problem. We hadn't experienced that until last week. And then again, late in games, who's the guy that's going to get the ball and take you home and just say, jump on my back. I feel confident that I can get you across the finish line. And they don't have that player either.
Well, I think they need multiple of those guys, not necessarily closers or nail and coffin players, but just guys that can go get a basket. I think one of the reasons why they were able to get off to such a hot start, I think it was 9-2 and then 12-3, is because if you look at the amount of fourth quarters that Curry didn't play, or even Draymond didn't play, it was a lot more than at the start of last season. And so you can build in rest throughout games. Like Curry, the first back-to-back of the season was against New Orleans at home. And it helped that a lot of Pelicans were out. But the second night of the back-to-back, they shellacked New Orleans because they didn't have to play much. I think Curry was at 27, 28-ish minutes. I think they lost the game against Brooklyn because Kerr had to expend his veterans against San Antonio. And the reason why they were spent on the second night of a back-to-back is because they couldn't put away the Pelicans. So there's this domino effect of, well, if you don't win that first game of the back-to-back, well, then you're a little bit gassed for the next night. Then you might be vulnerable that night. And then that might cause Curry to play 35 minutes, which he did against San Antonio, which is going to wear on those 36-year-old knees that he's now got bilateral patellofemoral pain in, or whatever the injury designation is. And then you're going to have to eventually load manage him and sit him. And you don't want it to be against a team like OKC, because if Curry plays in that game, you probably win.
Did you just make that word up?
No, I swear to God. I think that's what he actually has. Bilateral patellofemoral pain, I think.
Which is...
I'm waiting for Jersey Ken to double check.
Basically, my knee hurts like hell.
Yeah, I have old man knees.
Yeah. Well, I think...
Although Kerr actually mentioned the word tendinitis on Wednesday.
The Warriors are just... When you think about the number 2 scorer as it relates to the Golden State Warriors, and Jonathan Kuminga, let's just stay on him for a second. I think that we're getting closer and closer. The more we see of him, that he becomes a trade commodity. And maybe they were trying to move off of him last year and they just couldn't find the right suitors. And I know, I guess it doesn't have as much impact. It should, and it still is impactful. But the fact that he's 22 and that you can look back and this could be a huge mistake 2, 3, 5 years from now is less and less impactful, I think. And I think the further we go along and the more he continues to be more of a tease than anything else and not consistently giving you those points, and for it to really sort of come out in this game against Oklahoma where you can clearly see that you need a number two and it's not Jonathan Kuminga, I think the more that becomes evident, the more he becomes a trade commodity going forward for the Warriors.
So I agree with you, and I think it's more about the fact that I don't know if he's a perfect fit for the Warriors system, but the issue is that if you're going to trade someone like Kuminga, then you'd like to receive a pretty big piece back. The only way that you can acquire a large salary player is through somebody like Wiggins. And I don't think the Warriors want to move off of him at this point.
How times have changed.
Well, no, that's true. They were trying to get off him in a hell in a handbasket.
The second half of last year.
And this summer. Yeah. But the thing is now it's, okay, well, but all right, if you could upgrade your three spot, if you could go get, I don't know, name your small forward of choice, I think they'd do it, but you want to keep Kuminga, Wiggins, those kinds of players. So I think the Warriors are stuck to where Kuminga doesn't really fit right now, but the ceiling that he can help you get to is, I don't know, maybe higher than giving up on him and moving him for a player, because I'm not really sure what kind of guy they're going to be able to get.
Well, that's everything. I mean, it just depends on what it is you're getting in return. So when you sit down and you pick up a phone and you're Dunleavy and you begin to officially shop this guy, you have to see what it is that people are willing to give up. And that's when the trigger gets pulled.
But I don't think his value is that great around the league because people are afraid of what he wants to be paid.
Well, I would disagree because it depends on the team. It depends on the fit. I don't think it's a fit with the Warriors. He's not a 3 or he's not a 4. And Kerr wants him a 4. He's a 3. For crying out loud, he's a 2 at the end of the day, or at least he thinks he is. It's not a fit on this team.
Well, he thinks he's a 1.
And he can't shoot the basketball. And so that's, but there are teams that have shooters that need a slasher or that want to rebuild or feel that a 22-year-old with his talent is a perfect fit for their future and are in for tomorrow and not necessarily today. So I think it really depends on the team. And I think there's teams that are willing to invest in Jonathan Kuminga. I bet you there's a lot of GMs that see him and saying, you know what, if I get my hands on Jonathan Kuminga, I got myself a future piece that I can win with. And they might be right at the end of the day. It's just not working with the Warriors.
Well, it might be with a team like Brooklyn. I think that was a team that was connected to him this summer, or said that might have interest in restricted free agency.
You give me the
Schroeder?
Give me the 2 Cams, and we're good to go.
Well, Cam Thomas is a bucket. That dude's. Well, that was the other.
He didn't even play in the fourth quarter.
I know. I was going to say that was the most concerning part about the loss is you gave up 130 points. Cam Thomas didn't play in the fourth quarter. Cameron Johnson didn't play the second half.
That's crazy.
Arguably, their 2 best players weren't in the game. They were killing you with Zaire Williams at the 5, and gosh, who was the other guy? Trenton Watford.
Yeah.
Shout out Portland. No, the Warriors, I think, are. You can see now why they were trying to make a bid for Paul George and Lauri Markkanen. Whether you believe it was the right move or not, the lack of offense, specifically in crunch time, half-court situations, gives you a reason to understand why Mike Dunleavy Jr. in this front office was looking to acquire another alpha alongside Steph. Now, I don't think that Paul George, I think you're right. I don't think Paul George is that player. And I don't know if Markkanen by himself is that player. But
you would have to be at that price tag.
I mean, but I think it'd be 6 to 1, half dozen to the other. I think you'd be 12-6, maybe even regardless. Like Paul George wouldn't be available for some of these games that you'd probably lose, and he might help you win a couple of these close games that you lost. But I do think that we are overreacting a bit to this is their first slip of the season. It's the first time they've lost 3 in a row. It's the first time that they've had concerning losses, although really the only concerning loss, in my opinion, is the one to Brooklyn. Like San Antonio made sense because what you said, 3 and 4 nights, you wore down, you looked tired, And then OKC, I know that they were missing a few other good players, but that's a really good basketball team. And I think you understand why you could lose that game.
Yeah, just to stay on San Antonio for a minute, what did you think of Wembenyama?
Okay, everyone says he's shooting too many threes, and I understand, but when he does and when he hits them,
Yeah.
dude, he can change games. I mean, and he already can change game with his defense, but if he ever shoots close to 40% from three-point range, this dude is going to be unstoppable.
Which he will. He's got like he's a 7'6" with a Klay Thompson mentality. He did not stop shooting that
He has
thing.
a true jump shot, too. It's not just like a little set shot that he hoists up like a Manute Bol fish line.
But he does not get deterred after missing 5 in a row. He is still going to shoot that thing. And I think the rest of his game, he does shoot it too much. For someone 7'6", I don't mean to be Mr. 1990s guy, but you, as 7'6", you do have to have give me some interior presence, please. Just get down there and give me a jump hook. Just give me a little turnaround. Learn to shoot it with your left to right. Just do a Bill Walton jump hook and you'll destroy this league. Your inside-out game will just be absolutely, that's first ballot Hall of Famer. But I do think that's going to come. That's all going to come in due time. And he's being a very much of a 7'6" European who likes to play face up and is enamored with handling the basketball and shooting it from beyond distance.
Yeah, I mean, he's 20 years old. I also think he's going to get a little bit bigger. I mean, he's...
What?
Wider. Wider. Well, I don't know. Really, Trace Jackson-Davis grew a couple inches. Kuminga grew an inch or two. But the thing is, if you come
Would you want to be 7'6" at the end of the day?
Yeah, why not? He came into the league at probably less than 200 pounds. So I don't know if it's even plausible for him to... Like, which center is he going to back down? Those guys are like 250, 260.
Oh, that's true. I think I told you that he got rooted out by Austin Reeves when he was trying to post up Austin Reeves, and Austin Reeves just literally rooted him out of the spot. And so he has no lower center of gravity right now. But he's got to learn. That's just it. It's not fun. And it's sort of like it's not as sexy. It's not as glamorous. You're not crossing guys over. You're not shooting that little butterfly Jimmy from 25 feet. But you've got to learn to play down, muck it up a little bit. You're 7'6" for crying out loud. I mean, Olajuwon and David Robinson and all Patrick Ewing are just like, my God, just give me this guy for 10 minutes and I'll teach him some things.
Well, even without being able to have a post game, he's still averaging
he's awesome,
24, 10, and 4 blocks a night.
And the thing about him, he's
God.
like, my mom used to read these or listen to this, or maybe I read about this. There was radio, and there was a radio show that was the most popular, and it was called
Warriors This Week?
The Shadows Know. The Shadow Knows. The Shadow's always lurking. I guess the Shadow might have been like some crime detective guy. And so it's like the Shadow, or maybe he was a villain. I don't know. But that's just it. Defensively, Steph Curry was like an insect. He had eyes like, where the hell is that guy? Because I know he's not in front of me, but I know he's somewhere. I know he's lurking, man. And he changes everything defensively with those tentacles he calls arms.
There was a play in the preseason last year. It was in the first few minutes, so we'll hit a break in a second here. There's a play in the first few minutes where Andrew Wiggins just teed up like a corner three, like he was just going to, I'll just take it. Wembanyama's in the paint. He blocked the shot. And Wiggins had a look of just dumbfoundedness on his face. Like, how did he get to that? And then the next time down, or maybe it was a couple possessions later, he blocks Wiggins from the top of the key and then goes coast to coast. And this was in preseason. It was probably the first time a lot of Warriors fans, or maybe NBA fans, had seen him, play in the States and play live, and it was like, oh my God. And it feels like he's just scratching the surface. It's also a big reason why San Antonio, though he's missed a couple of games so far, they're 10-9. They're not a bad basketball team.
That was one of the biggest gimmies this year. Their over and under, I want to say, was like in the high 30s.
I thought it might have been lower than that.
Mid-30s?
I'll tell you which team I was dead wrong about on the other side, and it's not the Golden State Warriors. But we will get into them further. Again, they play Phoenix tonight, 6 o'clock. Dan Devone's got Warriors live at 5 o'clock. Warriors wrap up as well, all right here on 95.7 The Game. If you want to get your calls in, ask a question, get into the conversation, send us a text as well. 888-957-9570 is the number. We're back after this.
I'd put my hands in the future in robotics and technology as opposed to you and I.
This is why our civilization is going to crap.
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
Oh, we're going to do a bevy of topics over the course of Warriors this week. We got Golden State, Phoenix tonight. We got the idea of Waymos killing our city. And Dan Devone, I think a lot of people are more locked into the Warriors. Maybe it's because of the lack of interest or waning interest in the Niners, and the Giants are third fiddle. But also it's because the Warriors feel a little bit back after last season. And I don't know if people just all of a sudden were projecting into April and May and June, but it's almost, I felt a lot of people, especially after the post game I did Monday and Wednesday. It's like not that the world's, the sky is falling, but it's like, oh my God, we're a 35-win team again. It's like, no, you're probably not a 55-60 win team, but this Warriors team isn't bad all of a sudden.
Yeah, I think the Warriors and the Warrior fan base are groping a little bit. They're trying to find their new identity. And I think with the early success, a lot of Warrior fans said, oh, we're back. Because there's a huge generation that just knows one thing, and that's the Warriors going to either Western Conference Finals or NBA Finals and winning the thing. And when you're synonymous with winning and you get off to the hot start, I think that it was sort of pervasive throughout the Bay Area that, oh, the Golden State Warriors are back, and the Warriors are going to be a good team. They're going to be a top 2 seed in the Western Conference again this year. Hey, listen, that might be at the end of the day. But I think what everybody has to grapple with is that the days of a young Steph Curry, Draymond Green, as well as Klay Thompson, and you can throw Kevin Durant in there, that's over. It's just, we're not going to experience that again. There is not going to be another dynastic run with these guys. Maybe they can find a new core in the next couple of years via draft and a semblance of this. But as far as trying to identify who the Warriors are, I think people are still trying to recapture the past, which I think they have to let that go and just sort of, embrace what this is. And what this is, I don't think any of us really has any idea. It's just sort of take it as it goes and find out exactly where this experimentation of Steve Kerr playing this many guys with what has been a successful start despite the recent rash of losses, just, take this game to game and not get ahead of ourselves in trying to label or identify who the Warriors are at this point.
Well, yeah, I would preach patience certainly with this team because it is process. It is process-based, pardon me. And I think the player that represents their approach to this year for me is Buddy Hield. Like, Buddy Hield's a player that you're going to have to be patient with. Through the first 8 games of this season, Buddy Hield averaged 21 points a game, shot north of 50% from three-point range, and the Warriors lost 1 game. They were 7-1. You look at his last 10 games. He's shooting 37% from three-point range. He's only averaging 11 points, and the Warriors are 5-5. So those are inevitably going to be the ebbs and flows that you see with this team when you're playing as many dudes as Steve Kerr is playing. You have to give ample minutes to particular players, but if Buddy Hield's not shooting the crap out of the ball, he's only going to be playing 20 or 22 minutes a night. If Lindy Waters begins to struggle, he might step out of the starting lineup. There's going to be a lot of interchangeable parts. And one big reason is because of Melton's injury and kind of the void that it leaves the Warriors with. But again, even with Melton, like we were talking about with Curry, even with Curry, I still think there's some offensive issues with this basketball team. Even with Melton, I don't think he would have solved all the things that we're talking about. He certainly would have helped, and they might have been able to win 2 or maybe all 3 of the games that they lost. But I still think that there's something that this Warriors team is missing, and to me, the most glaring part is instant offense. I don't think they have a player like that alongside Steph. It doesn't have to be an alpha or a number 1 player, but someone who can get you a basket consistently, that's something that you need in the NBA because defense isn't always going to be there, as we saw on Monday against Brooklyn.
You remember last year when Jonathan Kuminga, and sort of all roads go back to him when you talk about the number 2, and he had what those Was it 23 consecutive games over 20 points? And you felt as though this is what you need. It was right after he complained or indirectly complained about playing time. And so they gave him run, and he proved to be right. He proved Steve Kerr to be wrong, sort of in a vacuum. But here we are again. And not to continually dig this up with Jonathan Kuminga, but just who the hell is this guy at the end of the day? Is he that guy where it looked as though he turned the corner? Okay, remember that? Just take yourself back to about a year ago where Jonathan Kuminga said, I was playing and I was doing well and you benched me. You went Moses Moody on me. And, that's just, I need some time. I need some run here. And then Steve Kerr puts him into games and he responds with those consecutive 20 or more points of contest. And you're thinking, all right, it's on. Here's Jonathan Kuminga was right. And here we are today where, again, it's a good game versus two bad games, two good games, a bad. I mean, I just don't know how to get my arms around this guy. And we can preach patience, and you can say 22 years of age to a certain degree because it's not like he's 19 anymore. And you and I have talked about that entire draft class, everybody got paid. And it was a stellar class that came out with Jonathan Kuminga. The Franz Wagners, we don't need to visit the Jalen Greens and the Cade Cunninghams. And you would think that obviously he's not playing in Detroit where Jonathan Kuminga would have gotten a lot more opportunity to play. He's with the Golden State Warriors, so that's clearly worthy of an asterisk. But still, how much patience, if you're the Golden State Warriors, are you willing to invest in this guy?
Yeah, I do think his draft class, which is a very good one, is going to be held against him, probably unfairly. But it's also hard to not look at the Wagners, the Şengüns, I mean, even players that were taken above him, Evan Mobley, Scotty Barnes, Cade Cunningham, players that were taken below him, Trey Murphy, Herb Jones. There's a lot of Jalen Johnson for Atlanta. There's a lot of ballers in that class, a lot of guys that got paid, Jalen Suggs, Cam Thomas, even Moses Moody to some extent. There were a lot of good players that came out of that 2021 NBA draft. And while Kuminga hasn't realized his potential yet, to me, it is a little concerning. And it's as much to do with JK as it is about the Warriors' view of him that last season, and I know a decent amount of it was because Wiggins missed a little bit of time, and Wiggins was much more inconsistent last year than he's been this season. But if you just look at the first 16 games, Kuminga's only started 4 of them. Last year, he averaged 16 points a game. This year, he's 13.5. Last year, he shot 53% from the floor. This year, he's at 43%. His three-point percentage is down. His free throw percentage is down. His rebounds are down. His assists are down. All of his statistics across the board are down. And maybe the most important one is minutes played. So I just wonder if the Warriors are ever going to prioritize his development, because it doesn't appear like it is a priority. And I think that's also how they've been able to win games. He hasn't been needed in every single game, but he helped them beat Houston. I think if he plays against San Antonio and Brooklyn, it might help them win those games. But I don't see the Warriors looking at him in his first contract season and saying, all right, this is going to be the reason why we get to this many wins or we go this far. Jonathan Kuminga is just a piece, and just a piece isn't typically a guy that gets a massive deal like he wants.
Well, it's a chicken or the egg, because while he's a piece, he could be a bigger piece if he proved himself, right? I don't think Steve Kerr would relegate him to the 18 to 20 minutes that you talked about if when he got his opportunity, he proved that he's worthy of staying on the floor like that of Draymond Green and Steph Curry. So it's one or the other. That the Warriors look at him and saying, okay, we're going to give you an opportunity just like everybody else. And if you play well, we understand, your age and your draft status. We picked you number 7 in the lottery. We want you to do well, but you have to prove yourself on the court. And to this point, he hasn't, which is why he's limited. So there's two ways of looking at that. You could say, the Warriors are deterring his growth, but at the same time, they're also giving him an opportunity to prove that he's worthy of getting more run.
No, that's true. But my point is he isn't a priority. I'm not saying that that's incorrect. Like, I don't think that Jonathan Kuminga has made himself worthy of being a priority with the minutes that you're talking about. Like, I don't think that he's taken such a significant step so far this season that Steve Kerr says, all right, you have to be a 30 minutes per game guy, or even you have to be a starter. I mean, we've asked Steve Kerr about this pregame, postgame. If you ask about JK, it's, what we need is scoring. We need that punch off the bench. You know, it's not, well, we really need his forcefulness on defense. We need his rebounding. We need his playmaking. We need his passing. We need his ability to get to the free throw line. It's no, we need JK to score. And if he can do that, he can help us. And it feels like he's also saying that if that night Kuminga's not scoring, he's not going to play. That is what Jonathan Kuminga is right now to this Warriors team, which to his credit, they need. They need a secondary scorer and someone specifically off the bench that can get you a basket. But 13.5 points per game on 44% shooting is not the efficient score that's going to help this Warriors team to a top 4 seed. It's a player that can sometimes help you and sometimes hurt you. And Steve Kerr doesn't feel like is going to put Kuminga in a position where he can hurt the Warriors if he doesn't have a good night.
Don't you think he's sort of the complete antithesis of Podziemski? Because Podziemski doesn't score, but the reason that he stays on the floor is because everything else he does. Whereas if Jonathan Kuminga isn't scoring, why am I giving him an opportunity?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I mean, I do think that there have been times where Pods has hurt the Warriors, but it doesn't happen nearly as often if he's...
But big picture, the reason why he's in that rotation, even when he's not scoring, is because of all the things that we've continually outlined about this young man, and that is making the smart basketball play. It's about getting rebounds, about taking charges, understanding defensive rotations, about being able to distribute the basketball. Because he's not scoring, obviously, but yet he's still in that rotation. And I don't think anybody, and I know there's some that would saying, hey, listen, man, you need to score, and it's becoming more and more apparent. But I don't look at Podziemski as being a detractor to the Golden State Warriors right now. Whereas if Jonathan Kuminga comes into a game and he's not scoring, to your point, he's just simply going to get yanked.
Yeah, and he probably should. But again, they need that. Just like they also need what Pods gives them too. And that's I don't think Pods have been perfect. He was equally terrible in the first quarter against OKC. Like he was
brutal. So was Kuminga.
All of them were. That's why you're down 16 points after 12 minutes. But I think that Podziemski gets grouped into the category of, for me, like jack of all trades, master of none, where it looks like he's, I don't know, it feels like because he can do more things, I think he gets the benefit of the doubt, as opposed to Kuminga, where it's like, all right, he's not scoring, he's not helping you. But Pods, he still has hurt the Warriors at times this year. And I actually think it's because of his lack of aggression. Like, they need guys to get shots up. One of the reasons why I think the Warriors offensively have struggled mightily, and not just down the stretch, but over the last few games, it's, their offensive rating has come down, their 3-point percentage has come down, is guys are not playing with the confidence that they did the first 10 games of the season. You're overall as a team shooting 37%, which is good. You're getting up the 8th most threes in terms of rate in the league, but if you're not hitting a bunch of them, like one of the reasons why they were able to blow teams out is because they would just bombard threes. And without Curry, they certainly don't have an extra guy, but I mean, they just don't have players that are going to make 3 or 4 threes a game on a given night.
And that's a problem.
Yeah, but I think Pods can be one of those. Like, Pods actually, OKC is a perfect game that I think Podziemski, for example, this summer envisioned being in without Steph and getting it 25 to 30, whether that's reasonable or not. But there was a game last year in Milwaukee where I think he had 26 or 28. He helped them win that game without Curry in Milwaukee. That hasn't happened so far this year. And I think that Pods is capable of doing that, but we just haven't seen it.
I do too. And I think that there's going to be, you need a level of patience. For some reason, I'm not worried about Podziemski's offense. I do think all the work he put in over the offseason will pay dividends. It just hasn't up to this point. But at some point, it's going to kick in. I'm just uncertain as to whether the three is really in his bag. I like that he's developed that mid-range. It's something he didn't have last year. And he's always going to get to the rim, and it's always going to be a little bit awkward because he's left-handed, but he can score. But just getting back to comparing and contrasting him with Jonathan Kuminga, again, the reason why Podziemski gets play, even though he's not scoring the ball, it's because of understanding all the other things in the game. And I don't think that Jonathan Kuminga has grasped that yet. I think he understands when Steve Kerr sits him down and says, listen, you need to rebound the basketball, that you need to do all these things in order for you to play in our system. We've always been a team that's been predicated on defense and understanding defensive rotations. It's go talk to your partner there, Draymond Green, because he will tell you that this is the Warrior way. It's Steph Curry doesn't just shoot and score threes. Steph buys in defensively. Steph knows exactly what to do with the basketball. There's a cerebral part to the Warrior game that I don't think Jonathan Kuminga has grasped, despite every single year it being pounded into his head that you need to rebound the ball. He's got to, when you see him on the floor, you got to recognize, man, he understands where to be defensively, or he just took that charge, or he's on the ground looking for that loose ball. Like he is yet to bought in. I think he does it sometimes just to demonstrate to Steve Kerr that, hey, look, I'm doing what it is that you asked, but it has to be more instinctive. It has to be sort of in your DNA. It's not learned behavior. It's not one of those where it's like, I'm doing this so that, I get an opportunity to play. He's got to recognize that all those things, the small things, the basketball plays, are just as important as him going the full 94 feet and dunking on somebody. And I don't think that that's fully seeped in.
No, I agree. I think he's made strides though. Like he's clearly gotten better over the past 2 years. The issue is that they're running out of time of when to make a choice.
How long are we going to talk about he's taking a step or he's taking strides? That was good the first 2 or 3 years. Year 4, it's like, when do you arrive?
Well, but that's also part of the issue is that the area of improvement that Kuminga I think is most capable of making is scoring the basketball. Is giving you offense. But that hasn't happened to the rate that you would want it to. Again, he's averaging less points and he's less efficient from the floor. He's not shooting as well from three than even he was last year. So even the area that you expect him to step forward in, and some of that is he's not getting playing time, but I hate to break it to you, like just because you potentially either that he gets traded or in the offseason or in the future, maybe 5 years from now, he leaves Golden State. You're not just all of a sudden going to be given 30 minutes a night, unless it's for a terrible basketball team. And I think that Kuminga also wants to win too, but helping and making winning plays is something that, to your point, I think Pods does a bit more frequently. And along with his position, the Warriors' lack of ball handling, that's probably why he plays more than a lot of others that people think he should be getting or shouldn't be getting burnt over. But
it also depends on sort of the system and the team that you're playing for. If he goes to, if he goes to the Charlotte Hornets, for example, and Charles Lee's your head coach, that's completely opposite of someone like that of a Steve Kerr and the Warrior way, right? Charles Lee will just let you play. There is no ceiling. If you watch LaMelo Ball these days, LaMelo Ball is shooting as many threes as Steph Curry, and he's doing half of them on 1 foot.
He's on the shelf again, by the way.
But that's just the structure, because I think everybody thinks that the way Steve Kerr does it, that's sort of the blueprint for everybody else in the NBA. That's not necessarily the case. Jonathan Kuminga, if he goes to some place like that of Charlotte, where you have a Charles Lee who's just saying, listen, I think you got all the talent in the world, and unlike that of Steve Kerr, I'm not putting any restrictions on you. Do you? We think you can blossom into being that guy. To give you a football analogy, it's sort of like, during the offseason, the Dallas Cowboys were like, hey, Trey Lance, we want you to play the entire offseason because I know the one thing that you haven't done is play football. And the guy ensuingly threw 5 interceptions in the game. That was the end of him. But the point is that I think everybody looks at this through the lens of just the Warriors. He can go someplace where somebody envisions him of being a star and get that opportunity to do what it is that he thinks, he potentially could do in this league, and that being Jonathan Kuminga.
Well, I think the Warriors want him to be a star. It's not like they took him and have stuck with him and have refused to trade him.
But it's getting late in the game for me, and maybe it's just me, and I'm trying to be patient, but do you think he's going to be a star in this league?
If I had to bet, no.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't. But the biggest issue is,
how do we qualify star? Because I think he's going to score in this league.
Is he going to make multiple All-Star teams? I would bet no. That's hard to do. You got to be a top 15 player in your conference to make the All-Star team. That's not an easy feat. That means you're a top 30 player, thereabouts, in the NBA.
So we're just ruling out all NBA.
Well, I'm just saying, making an All-Star team. Being all NBA means you're a top 15 player in the league. You're on one of the 3 5-man lineups. You think Kuminga can be an All NBA player?
Do I?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I wouldn't bet that either. That doesn't mean that he can't help a team. That doesn't mean that he can't be a guy that, again, is a solid player. But I think he wants to be the All NBA guy now, and it's unfair to expect him to do that. Even if Steve Kerr said, you know what, JK, we're gonna give you as much rope as you want. You can play as much as you'd like. You could play 39 minutes a night, and I don't care. I don't think all of a sudden that's going to transform him into the player that he wants to be.
But is it it's not necessarily unfair when you're asking
to expect that?
Well, no, but if you're asking for the sort of money he wants, you got to be knocking on that door as far as an all-star. You got to be in the conversation. Well, he thinks he's an all-star.
Who in his class is knocking on that door?
Are you kidding me? Cunningham?
I wouldn't say Cunningham is an all-NBA player.
He's knocking on the door. I think Franz Wagner is making noise in year 4. I think the list of guys that you talked about Franz Wagner is just, now that, Boncaro's been out, see what Wagner's doing? He's averaging more than 30 a game. The guy is just doubles every night.
No, he's been very good, but I'm saying as a top 6 forward in the NBA.
Well, I'm saying being in the conversation right now, and I think all of those guys, you could say another year or 2 of this, and welcome to the club.
That's a good point. I mean, and we can dig deeper into this conversation. 888-957-9570 is the number. Are you looking at the Warriors right now in their last 3 losses? How are you reacting to them? We're talking about Kuminga, his development in relation to where the Warriors are at, where their season's headed. I think they're still in a good spot. I just think that people were getting over the heels on what this season could become. They're putting the cart before the horse. And I'm interested to see how they also play against a team that's star-studded tonight like the Phoenix Suns. And Dan Devone will have Warriors Live for you at 5 o'clock. 888-957-9570 is the number. Please hang on. Jimmy in Bayview, Austin, and San Jose will get your call on the other side, but we got to hit a break here on Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
if I don't have a homeless person urinating on my front steps, if I don't hear that dog barking next door to me and I go outside and it's complete solitude, I freak the hell out.
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
In the Presidio? Oh, my gosh. What's been going on over there? San Francisco's a different place. I got to tell you what, man. You got to turn your mic on.
I bet you can count the number of sirens you've heard in Alameda Island in the last 5 years.
Well, I live in the Mission, so I fall asleep to it. But 888-957-9570 is the number if you want to tell us about your horror stories at night, or if you want to talk about the Golden State Warriors, we're taking your calls. Let's go to Austin in San Jose. Austin, kick us off. What's going on, man? How are you?
Hey, fellas, enjoying the conversation on this holiday weekend. Listen, you guys forced me to call, and you know I got some things that you pressed my buttons on, man. Mm-hmm. One was, and I can't believe, and let's have some fun today, guys. This is all in good. I don't want you guys to take this the wrong way, but the idea of projecting and selling us on Podziemski and these guys that are really role players, they're professionals. They've got to where they are. But the idea that we're trying to sell these guys as being guys that are going to take us beyond and play on a given night against the guys we saw. The Nets, OKC basically toyed with the Warriors the other night. The Nets came in on back-to-back when they should have been given up in the fourth quarter and beat the Warriors. Okay, all that being said, on any given night, we can beat any team. But if we go out and start projecting these guys that are really bench role players into roles they're not suitable for, they don't have the talent, guys. How about going out and getting guys that are more talented? The only guy that has talent on that's not part of the Steph, Wiggins, and Draymond triumph, like a trio, is Kuminga. And yet we find every day we come up with things that Kuminga doesn't do. And Dan, you said something just recently. You said, hey, on another team, in another system, they might not care as much about what Kuminga can't do. They would probably focus on what he does do well. We seem to focus on what the guy doesn't do well. So I'm really thinking that, hey, man, I think we're really over-projecting these guys. I think Warriors are probably going to be a 3 to 4 game over 500 team at the end. That might be good enough to get us into the playoffs. But we start thinking these guys are a juggernaut given the talent level. And you guys tell me if I'm wrong. What am I missing? Where's the talent level beyond the first 4 guys? And listen, GP2, Podziemski do a lot of the same things. How good would Caruso look on this roster? And we saw what talent looks like with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Williams from Santa Clara, the OKC Jalen Williams. I would give 3 of our young guys for him. I would trade all of them to get him, just him. Okay? That's how much I think we're behind in terms of our young talent. So, guys, you got me worked up. Apologize for my own place. That's what I got this morning. Thanks.
Happy holidays, Austin. Yeah, I think some fair points. I mean, you know, the over-projecting is natural. People are going to do it. But I am with him, and that's why the Kuminga thing is, I don't know, it's so difficult for me to figure out, is because I think he's right. He is the most talented player outside of, you know, maybe your big 3 guys. But for whatever reason, he hasn't put it together. And I don't think he's done it enough so far for me that he's the priority. Like, if the Warriors traded Jonathan Kuminga this season, I would not be shocked. And it's because he hasn't done enough yet.
Yeah, I think that I stand by what it is I say about Jonathan Kuminga. But when I say trade him, let's not misinterpret here. I'm not saying get rid of him. I'm not saying like let's go in another direction. It's about value and what it is that you're getting in return. But the idea of Jonathan Kuminga, and I was when I first saw this guy, I'm like, that's exactly what this team needs. And I saw him in Las Vegas dealing on guys. And even in that first year, I mean, he had some hiccups, and you're so excited about the future with Jonathan Kuminga. Then year 2, it's sort of similar to that of year 1. Then year 3, it's just, and now we're in year 4. And I do think it's, it's within your right to ask the questions, will this ever arrive? Is this, he's obviously going to get better, but is the idea that I'm being sold, or at least personally, I thought that this guy was going to be a guy who's on a fast track to be a star in this league. And how we qualify stars, whether he's an NBA All-Star or not, I'm highly doubtful. And seeing enough of his basketball, I hope I'm proven wrong, but I think I've arrived at that conclusion where he could be a scorer at times, but whether he can be a consistent scorer. And I'm getting to the point where I'm a little done with, well, we need patience, and the guy's only 22, and you can't move off on somebody at this age. I don't want to make that mistake either. I would shop him, but it all depends on what it is that I'm getting in return. Am I going to get fair value as far as another young player that fits better into the system? So when I say Jonathan Kuminga frustrates me and they should trade him, it does not mean that we're just going to discard him. It's all about what it is that you're getting in return for this young player.
But that's the thing, is you're running out of time. You are. I think people have to come to the realization that by the end of this season, you have to pick whether you believe in him or not. And that's what the Warriors are trying to figure out. You have to decide whether you believe in him enough to give him a large sum of money
Well, you
or
don't
not.
have to.
Yes, you do.
Well,
If you
he's
want to keep him.
unrestricted. You can wait another year.
No. He's a restricted free agent.
So he's restricted. I'm sorry.
No, but I'm saying, so someone will either dictate his value for you, or someone will dictate his value for you, or you can move off of him before then. That's where this is coming towards. That's the head it's coming to. So, I think Kuminga is a good player. I actually think he's like.
My point is, you don't have to do it this year.
Yes, you do. This upcoming summer.
Yeah, but this year he can play the full season.
Oh, yeah.
And you can look at the body of work and make that decision in the offseason. So this idea that you have to make a trade at the trade deadline or this year is, I would err on the side of, I want to see more of Jonathan Kuminga before I give him any sort of an extension. And there's not a gun to my head that I have to do it before the trade deadline or this basketball season is my point.
No, I agree with that, but I don't know how much he's going to be able to do between now and the end of the season to drastically change your mind. You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, if you felt the way that you felt, in regards to like, all right, I love JK, I want him to be here, give him the money. He would already have the contract.
Yeah,
that's kind of how I feel about him, and that's why it's been difficult for me to watch the ups and downs. He's not the only person. I think we just end up talking about him because, again, of what Austin is discussing, which is he has the highest upside. He clearly is the most talented of the young players on the Warriors. Is he the most talented compared to the OKC guys? Perhaps not, but the Warriors don't have that. They're not afforded that luxury. Kuminga is the guy that you have to decide whether or not you want to lean into or not. And he's 22 years old. He's young. He's got a lot of basketball ahead of him, but you got to make a choice, and it's an expensive one.
Well, the reason why his name surfaces is because, again, and we did this last year, who's the number 2 to Steph Curry? And we said it's got to be Jonathan Kuminga. He's the young player, needs to take the next step. He didn't take that step last year. Once again, we go into this season. It's the exact same blueprint. Who's going to be the number 2 to Jonathan Kuminga? And it came to the forefront against OKC that when Steph Curry's not available, they don't have that guy. And who's that guy? Well, again, it was supposed to be Jonathan Kuminga. Therein lies the frustration, I think, for a lot of people. That, once again, we're in another campaign where we're waiting for this guy to take over the mantle, that I'm that guy. Well, that was another opportunity for you against OKC, and you're clearly not that guy.
Well, I mean, not yet. No, he's not. He's not that guy yet. And people have questions if he ever will be. But the other part of this, too, is that he clearly provides something that the Warriors don't have. I mean, the Warriors don't have someone that can get to the rim outside of him. Even Wiggins isn't as explosive as Kuminga is. I think Wiggins is a better scorer. He's a far better three-point shooter. But Wiggins had 9 points in the opening minute against OKC. He had 11 in the first half. And I think until he hit that 3 with like a few seconds left to make it a 1-point game, he had 2 points in the second half. I mean, Wiggins disappears. I think he's a more steady defensive player, but both him and Kuminga are in their own ways extremely inconsistent. And for me, the pairing that I'd like to see Steve Kerr lean into more would be those two together, but they also haven't proven that they can really, for extended periods of time, play well because they're kind of the same mold. It's your turn, my turn. And both of them at this point in their careers, Wiggins because of, what he is, and Kuminga because he hasn't done it yet, but neither of them create for others.
Well, that's interesting that you say we know who he is.
Wiggins?
Yeah. Do we? Because I think that we're sort of like, yeah, Jonathan Kuminga should be the trade piece, but I'm a little reluctant to move off on Andrew Wiggins. This might be the perfect opportunity to move off on Andrew Wiggins because he's demonstrating to everybody. He's showcasing right now that he's a changed player. But if you're willing to be a bit of a riverboat gambler, maybe if you're the Warriors, you're like, I know this guy. And I know that there's a high percentage that he's going to go back to being Andrew Wiggins. Maybe not now, but in the latter stages of the season. So if I deal him now where he has a high value, I might get something. I might be able to hoodwink somebody and fleece somebody for some good young talent because while Andrew Wiggins is playing well up to this point, I mean, his reputation is his reputation. And I don't think we can discount what's happened over the last 3 years. And so I'm not saying that that's necessarily what the Warriors are going to do, but it's a consideration, is it not? That maybe you can shop Andrew Wiggins and saying, look be the used car salesman. She runs now just like a brand new baby. This car's going just like it did back in the day. You want to buy it? And the Warriors all along know that there's a good chance that he's going to revert to being who he had been over the last couple of years, which was, again, another frustrating piece. But
if you're moving him or and these are decisions they have a long time to make, but if you're moving Wiggins, to me, it's for a large salary player. It's not to get younger. I don't think the Warriors are looking at the trade market right now and saying we need to get younger. I think they did that this offseason.
Well, if you have to package him with a Jonathan Kuminga, my point being is that all of a sudden he's not a trade commodity or he's no longer on this shelf because he's playing well. To me, I would take a look at the body of work because you know it so intimately, being an executive of the Golden State Warriors, that what it is that you're seeing from Andrew Wiggins could be more temporary than anything else.
But to me, if you've really waited this long, the course of 2 seasons essentially to get this guy back, I just don't see why they would move off on him so quickly. I mean,
so quickly he was halfway out the door just a couple of months ago.
Well, but that's what I'm saying though is if you didn't move him then when no one wanted him, quite frankly, then why would you? I don't know. To me that would be I don't know. I guess a step in the opposite direction of where they're trying to go, which is compete.
Because the other thing you have to keep in mind while we talk about the Golden State Warriors and that we need this team to breathe before we can really pass judgment on them. And now that we're about 20 games in, we're beginning to see some chinks in the armor. And as it relates to Andrew Wiggins, there's a good chance that once this season goes along, that we're going to see the old Andrew Wiggins resurface. That what it is that we're witnessing right now is just a sample size of a good, 20 games into the season. But once we get into, 50, 60 games in the year, I think that there's still some that are holding their breath, that the old Andrew Wiggins is lying in there somewhere, and he may surface at some point during the latter part of this year.
That's possible. 888-957-9570 is the number. Let's go to Skills in Vallejo. Wants to talk about Kuminga. Skills, what's going on?
Hey, good morning, guys. Earlier, you guys were talking about what Podziemski brings to the table and what Kuminga brings to the table. And I just wanted to, because Dan used the word in passing instinctively what he does. And what Kuminga does not have is those instincts. Here's a guy who, for the time he was in the Congo, for the time he came to the United States, for the time he was in the G League, probably never had to do the things like rebounding. The Kurz asked him to do rebounding, defense, those kind of things. All he was really needing to do was score, because he was probably miles ahead of everybody else on whatever team he was on. He was probably miles ahead of everyone else in terms of talent. He didn't have to do anything else. All he had to do was worry about putting the ball in the basket. So those instincts never probably did develop. Then you get to a guy like Podziemski, who is not nearly as talented as Kuminga. I'm not talented to play, of course, but doesn't have his size, doesn't have his ability to score. And let's be real. I hate to bring this into the conversation, but he's a Caucasian guy playing in a world dominated by brothers. So he's got all those things working against him. He had no choice but to use those, but to develop those instincts and be able to get a nose for the ball, steal the ball, defend, guard, hit the floor when the ball is loose. He had no choice. Now Kuminga's in a league where there is no one else, or I should say, there is everyone else who's as good as he is. He does not stand out. He can do some things. That is true. He's certainly a contributor. He's certainly an NBA player for the most part. But he's not the guy that dominated all throughout his youth in entering the pros. And I'm sure it's hard for him trying to make that adjustment. I'm going to let you go on that, guys. Have a great one.
Thanks, Skills. Yeah, I think, look, I mean, all those things may be true. They may not be. I think it just comes down to they're different players. And whether it's because of their upbringing or not, Kuminga he's a more naturally talented player than Podziemski is. I don't know if that has anything to do with race or, upbringing, but it just is. He's 6'7". He can jump out of the gym. Pods is a more scrappy player. But also, this is something that maybe it's because of the melanin, but I think people just assume that Pods is like this cerebral, high IQ guy. He makes an equal amount of dumb plays per game. He still screams at refs. And he still does some things that are not very smart. But it's like they don't get noticed. I don't know. To me, because Podziemski doesn't jump out of the... Actually, what Podziemski did a couple nights ago against Brooklyn, I thought was hilarious. You see him try to tip slam that ball off a miss?
Yeah. He came down the lane. It's what was he thinking?
I don't know. Like that's not a smart play. That's you trying to make, I don't know, some play that's out of who you are. He does that too. They all do it. They're young guys. I don't know.
I get it though. I get the perception. Why does this guy, his rookie year, get to jump to the front of the line? Why is he surpassing Moses Moody, for example, and getting all this run? And Steve Kerr obviously has his reasons, and I think Steve Kerr is the last guy in the world as far as NBA coaches to play a race card, but I understand it. I don't think – I can see it's not a good look. I mean, Podziemski suddenly is this, the teacher's pet, and now all of a sudden you got these guys, including Kuminga, including Moody, who are all vying for playing time, and here comes this rookie out of nowhere. Now suddenly he's cracked the starting lineup.
I find it strange, though, that people have their ire pointed at Podziemski with, if we're talking about Moody, the guy that people should be pissed about it, if they are, that Moody doesn't play, is Lindy Waters III. I mean, if you want to be honest, who's Lindy Waters III?
Yeah.
He's a G League guy from OKC who was a 24-year-old rookie and now is 26. And I'm not trying to bash Lindy. I like Lindy Waters. I think he's a good player. But I'm saying that if you are really mad at somebody for taking Moody's playing time, it shouldn't be the guy at a different position. It should be the guy that is just slightly better at doing all the things that Moody's supposed to be doing.
Well, it's a perfect example as to why it has nothing to do with race. Because Lindy Waters looks nothing like that of Podziemski. But he jumps to the front of the line because, again, it's Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr sees this just through it's all about basketball. What makes sense to him and gives him the best opportunity within his structure. And it's the same reason why you saw Spencer get some run. And it's the reason why GP2's still playing NBA basketball is because Steve Kerr saw value in this guy back in the day. And why it didn't work in Portland, but it works with the Golden State Warriors. It has nothing to do, I don't think, with skin tone at the end of the day. And I think Lindy Waters is the perfect example. You kidding me? This guy all of a sudden is now the number 2 and starting? How did he bypass me if I'm Moses Moody?
Well, and I'm kind of with the 650 here on the Comcast Business text line. The Dubs have been playing noticeably different than how they started with Melton done. I want to see them go back to the Curry, Wiggins, Kuminga, Green, TJD lineup. Defense is starting unit that allows Kerr to adjust offensively based on how the game's playing out. I kind of agree. It is like they've been reverted back to the first 5 or 6 games of the season when they didn't have Melton. And I think the Warriors had 5 or 6 different starting lineups in like their first 8 games or 9 games. I do think that that's something that I would like to see prioritized, because I also think that, again, just getting more wings on the floor, it's how the game is played. Like, I don't think Kuminga is perfect. I don't think Wiggins is perfect. But one thing I will say about JK is I think he does succeed when the game is up and down. Like, he plays well when the game is moving back and forth. I think where he struggles is when the game slows down and he has to execute in the half court. And that's what we saw against Oklahoma City, along with everybody. But when Curry's out there, I don't know. I know he's probably going to go back to the bench, and Kerr basically said as much. But I would like to see him and Wiggins be given some more rope.
And I think that's one of the reasons why Lindy Waters gets run, is because he's a guy who gets shots in motion. And when the game's getting up and down the floor, he can be very fluid in walking into his three. And that's not something that you can say about the other quote-unquote shooters on this basketball team. Jonathan Kuminga is just, it's not about him scoring the ball. Even him not shooting the three with any regularity, you like to see it. It's just he really has to at some point, and this usually the light goes on at some point, and maybe this gets back to having a level of patience, but he's got to recognize that there is no reason why Podziemski should be getting more rebounds than him. And rebounds, just like playing defense in the NFL, it's want to. No one teaches you or tells you, hey, man, you've got to have desire. It's either in the DNA or it's not. And that's an issue with this guy. It's all the other things. That light has got to go on. That if I start playing defense and really buying in to being, tell yourself, set goals for yourself that you're going to be one of the best defenders or an all-NBA, first team defense or second team defense. Like that's where he's got to mature. And that's what it is that he has to see at the end of the day. And I think in order for him to really take that step forward, the offense is, we can nitpick that he can't shoot a three, but I think that, he'll be fine. It's the other things that are weighing him down.
Well, and also hopefully him and Podziemski both regress to the mean positively in regards to shooting. Like, I don't think Pod's going to shoot 19% from three the entire year. I think Kuminga is better than a 30% three-point shooter. Maybe not by a ton, but like both of these guys, I don't think we've also seen the best of this season, but they are how the Warriors can raise their ceiling. Like that is one thing that I do wholeheartedly believe in. If there are two young players that the Warriors are dependent on the most to get the most out of their season, it's those two guys. And if they don't play better than they've been playing, then the Warriors might be, to our caller earlier, Austin, a team that's a few games above 500.
Can we talk All-Star game on the other side?
You want to get? Oh, well, it is being hosted here this year. Why, you got a submission for the dunk contest?
No.
You want to throw your name in the three in the? No. You want to be in the free throw contest.
Yeah, I want to take on Rick Barry.
Well,
kick his ass. I don't care. He's 80.
He actually might be there. Dude, you can't talk about Rick like that, man.
He's are you kidding me?
He's a legend.
The best. He was Steph Curry before Steph Curry.
He's better than Steph. That's shooting free throws.
Oh, yeah. 91% he finished his career.
I believe. The coach of Vallejo also wants to get into the conversation on the other side. We got to hit a break, though. We got 1 hour left on Warriors this week. Every Saturday, 9 to noon. Dan Devone, Evan Giddings, back after this, 95.7 The Game.
Hey, folks, this is it.
Hey, Gil, when you say those radio announcers, you're excluding one Dan DeVoma Kahuna, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
Kenny loves that, man. Loves when I get put in my place.
Well, you give him a lot of material. I'm not going to lie to you.
I'll tell you what. Jersey Kim, what do you think of the All-Star game this year?
I'm down. I like it. The talking about the four team split.
They're not going to cancel it. What do you mean? Are you in?
Well, they should have.
You know, Steph Curry was the one. I don't know if he was the one, but he was the one who consulted with.
Was he on the committee?
Yeah, he was the one who consulted with the commissioner.
This is for the 4-team format that they have?
They got it, man. They got it right. I don't know what it's going to look like.
Oh.
I can buy this.
Now, why are you buying it? You haven't seen it before.
Well, I like it on paper.
Because it's just different than the crap that they've been putting out the last few years.
Let's just break this down. So you got 3 teams comprised of 8 players, which I like.
Sure.
And then you have
spots.
You've got this what is it, the futures game or the what do they call it? The
futures game.
Is it the
Rising Stars?
Rising Stars, yeah. So you have the Rising Stars. The winner of the Rising Stars, like it's basically rookies versus second-year players.
Podziemski.
And so they will take on. They'll be one of the 4 teams, and so I think that there's going to be a.
They're going to win it all.
There's going to be a level. Well, because they're going to play.
Yeah, because they actually care and they don't know better.
Well, they're going to set the tempo on this whole thing. That's the X factor. Because they're going to want to go up against the All-Stars, and you rest assured those boys are going to go. And if you're an NBA All-Star, you're going to be like, hell no. And we're actually going to get some basketball amongst the best players in the NBA.
Well, I think what we're going to get is a nice blend. So, like, for example, Wemby is going to be an all-star. So which team does he play for? Does he play for the Rising Stars? Does he play for one of the 3 all-star teams?
You always got to, ruin everything. I know. I'm just... Jesus. He's going to be on one of the teams.
No, but my point is he can't push himself. He can't push the rest of his young guys. To me, you got to choose. He can be an all-star, but he's got to be with the young dudes. Because Wembanyama...
Okay. Let's put him with the young guys.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's going to happen. Also, I feel like there's going to be this peer pressure, like in game, that LeBron's going to be looking at. I don't know. Name your rookie. He's going to be looking at Ricochet and being like, "Dude, why are you trying?"
Is LeBron an all-star this year?
I don't know. Well, yeah, probably. His name is LeBron James.
Job, Ken. Keep punching holes in this thing of Evan Giddings trying to take away my all-star game that I'm
I don't even know what I'm arguing with you about. I just want to do it because it's fun. But LeBron's going to look at this guy who's 34 years younger than him and says, all right, buddy, what are we doing here? The moment that Ricochet blows by him, LeBron's not going to be like, oh, well, now I'm going to try harder because these young guys, you got to show the young guys. He's going to be like, dude, do you know what this is? This is an exhibition. I'm not trying to break a sweat.
Well, but I think there's going to be an attitude change. Because the tournament idea, anything that involves a tournament, I think creates a level of competition.
Yeah, the NBA Cup was real competitive.
The NBA tournament. Well, this is the
Emirates Cup.
Don't be disrespectful.
Have you flown in Emirates, by the way?
Yes.
Because I have a buddy who flew first class on Emirates.
Yes, I have.
And
first class. I haven't been first class.
Oh, I hear it's crazy. Like my buddy said, it was better than his first apartment. Like it was bigger than his studio in New York. He didn't want to leave when the flight landed.
You know what they need to do?
They had like a personal bathroom.
Well, you got everything. You got a personal butler, from what I've heard. What they need to do in order to get rid of this, because when you get on planes, you have to walk through first class to get to economy or whatever they call it now to make you feel better about not being able to afford first class.
Yeah.
You have to board in the back. I'm sorry. I don't want to see what life is like for the other side before I step into your poverty-stricken section of an airplane. I don't want to do it. Put me in the back and let me just revel in whatever you bring for me. Emirates is very nice, but Southwest, all the rest. Don't let me step through the door to Narnia and then show me out the back to some alleyway. I don't want it.
The worst is when they close that curtain. Like, all right.
Yeah, sorry, buddy.
You got the have-nots back here.
Although if you're a real one, if you're just going to go full Wade Boggs, the place to find all your libations for the plane is in first class. So you can kind of sneak in through.
Oh, come on, man. That's urban legend. He did not drink that many beers. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, I am. Yeah, on a one-way flight from Seattle to Boston, or Boston to Seattle.
There's no way he crushed.
It's like 200 beers.
There's no way, man. Have you ever seen It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
It's my favorite episode.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, when Charlie is the only one that makes it to Boston. And the best part is when they go to the baseball field at the end, and he's just stumbling drunk because he's had 76 beers. And he hits a ball to the gap, falls over.
That was the best.
And then his buddy tells him, Wade Boggs went 0 for 4 that night. You know what that means, right? You're better than Wade Boggs. And he goes up, he's like, Wade Boggs.
What they need to do is why wouldn't you just make the entire plane first class? Why? Why not give foot space? Why not give all the amenities to first class? The first person that captures that is going to be a moneymaker. You're going to win. Everybody's just trying to cram more people in. Everybody's just trying to do it on the cheap instead of embracing. Let's just cater to the people. Why not cater to the consumer? Why do I have to pay a change fee? Hey, I can't fly out on the 5th of October. I got to fly out on the 8th. Yeah, you can fly out on the 8th, but it's going to cost you $250. Why? Well, it's a change fee. What? It's like banking fees. What are we doing here? Why screw the customer? The first person that embraces the customer shoots to the top. The entire plane ought to be first class.
I don't think that's how that works.
I know it doesn't how it works. And I'm not saying that it has to be a first-class ticket in terms of price. The price should be the same, but have, the standard of your experience while flying, wherever it is that you're going, should be like that of what first class is currently.
No, I agree, and I would love for every single part of a plane to be first class, but, number one, it would be more expensive. Flying would be, dude, I can get a round-trip flight to San Diego for $75.
Southwest holding that card.
Or Spirit or whatever.
Spirit. They charge me $4 for water.
Whatever,
it's not free.
Whatever wooden flight you get on and just cruise in.
Spirit's going to turn into a crop duster. They're just going to get in the area and say, all right, jump. I don't even land.
I mean, you basically have to sneak a bag in. They say, oh, yeah, don't worry. The ticket's only $20, but the bag's $48.
They just filed for bankruptcy, by the way.
Well, good.
Yeah, it's a matter of time.
I mean, maybe they can get bailed out. I need a flight down to San Diego for Christmas.
Never had an accident.
All right, well, now you just jinxed
I know, man.
Why would you say that?
I know, bro.
I'm flying Southwest going for Christmas. My mom's going to kill you.
Somebody's shooting free throws. He hasn't missed in the last 2 weeks.
Speaking of poor free throw shooting, let's go to the coach in Vallejo who wants to talk about Kuminga. Sorry, that was a cheap shot. Get us back on track, Coach. What's going on? Hope you had a happy holiday.
Hey, I did. Same to you guys. But Evan, you kind of broke my heart because normally you're a very fair and non-biased person, but your take on Kuminga is totally wrong. And I'll tell you why. You talked about his rebounding numbers. Number one, why he doesn't rebound as much as Podziemski. Off the top, he doesn't play as much, okay? And he doesn't play consistently as much. That's number one. Number two, Kuminga has to guard guards. He plays out on top a lot, as he was playing Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. He plays Lillard. He plays point guards a lot, both he and Wiggins. That's going to affect their rebounding numbers. Podziemski guards no one. There's no guard in the league he can guard, so therefore, after everyone blocks out, he rushes in. He's what's called a rebound stealer. Now, I like his hustle, and that's good, but that's what he does because there's no one he can guard. And number three, again, Kuminga is such a unique talent. If he was given 30 minutes a night, 25 minutes a night consistently, you're going to see those numbers goes up. But he plays in 4, 5, 6 minute stretches. Kerr snatches him in, snatches him out, snatches him in, snatches him out. Podziemski, he'll play half the second quarter, then the first half of the third quarter. So you're not really being fair to Kuminga at all. Now, however, if Kuminga's numbers were like Podziemski's numbers this year, you guys would be calling him unplayable. Podziemski is unplayable right now. His three-point shooting is a lot better than Podziemski's. again, Podziemski, I don't really think is an NBA ball player. He's become Kerr's favorite. Fans are hating Podziemski right now. He's the Jordan Poole right now because he talks a lot of stuff and he doesn't put up numbers. He meets every microphone. He's every post game. He's always jumping in somebody else's shot when they're being interviewed. So Podziemski is not a very popular fellow right now. But anyway, I got that out of my system.
Hey, Coach.
And happy holidays.
Coach, sorry, no, hold on. No, so with Kuminga, like I agree. Comparing him and Podziemski is unfair. Their games are different. Their roles are different. Their positions are different. But what I was talking about, and I want to throw in and get your opinion on this, is the fact that compared to himself, Kuminga compared to himself last season has not taken a large step, at least from what I've seen. Maybe you've seen it a bit differently. All I was talking about in regards to his numbers is that they have not gone up or they've gone down compared to what he did last season when I thought he took a great leap in his third year.
You know what? And here's my answer to that. I agree. But they started featuring Kuminga at that month and a half stretch.
Yeah.
He was featured at that stretch. Listen, if you're on the court and you got a Steph Curry and you got a Buddy Hield, you got a healthy and well-playing Wiggins, there's not a lot of basketball left for you to play, okay? And I'll tell you what, Kuminga, his value to the Warrior team, he draws fouls better than anyone on the team, okay? And I hope his free throw shooting gets better. It was 75% last year. But I tell you, there's not a lot for Kuminga to do out there because he's got a lot of other scorers out there now, especially with Wiggins playing well, and they're playing the same position. Remember last year, Wiggins wasn't there. Okay, and they had to use Kuminga in that aspect. But this year, he's sharing a lot of that role with Wiggins, and I like to see them both on the court at the same time a little bit more.
I'm with you, Coach. I'm 100% with you there. I do think that Kerr, in order to find the potential that this team has or find the ceiling of this team, unless they decide to make a move and whatever, we'll talk about that when it happens. I do think that Wiggins and Kuminga have to find a way to coexist. Because, it's just basketball. Like, if I listed the best players on the Warriors, Kuminga is in that group of top 7 or 8 guys. And the fact that he can't play, or Wiggins can't play, I don't want to put it all on JK, that one of those two guys can't seem to play with the other, well, then that is a problem. Like, Kuminga is one of the Warriors' most talented players. He might not be playing as one of their best right now, but I don't see how this team can get markedly better unless he and Wiggins find a way to coexist.
So what's your starting lineup?
My starting lineup would be, assuming that Curry, who, by the way, was a full participant in practice yesterday, he's trending towards playing tonight in Phoenix. My starting lineup would be Curry, Wiggins, Kuminga, Draymond, TJD. And then the closing lineup, because as much as I know you love Trace Jackson Davis, he cannot close because he can't make free throws. It is some combination of Curry, Waters, Hield, or Moody, Wiggins, Kuminga, Draymond.
Well, there's some holes in that.
There's holes in whatever they throw out there, to be honest.
You've gone really small, right? And the reason that those two can't coexist, it's not as though Kerr hasn't tried. This is one of those where I think you just have to defer to Kerr. And it doesn't – Jonathan Kuminga has got to be able to shoot the basketball from distance if he wants to play on the floor with Andrew Wiggins. It's just – I get what it is that coach is saying. And I hope I'm not coming off, although I am, as hating on this guy. It gets to a point where you got to take the bull by the horns, Jonathan. You've got every opportunity, and the reason why you have a limited playing time is because when you get your opportunity, you're not wowing the world. You're not taking over. You're not being that guy that everybody thought that you potentially could be. The athleticism, and yeah, you're right. He does get to the free throw line more than anybody because he creates action. He's the only guy who can ISO and get to his spot or take you off the bounce and get to the rim. And more often than not, if you're aggressive, you're going to get rewarded and get to the free throw line. But there's got to be consistency. You got to stop getting sped up. You got to stop dribbling with your head down into three dudes. You cannot make these errant passes. Otherwise, I cannot play you with the sort of consistency or the sort of, time that you want. And that's just sort of the bottom line in all of this when it comes to Jonathan Kuminga. He's got to show the maturity.
I mean, I think, he did, like in a game like Houston earlier this year, like they don't win that game without Kuminga. He scores 6 points in overtime. But those moments don't happen consistently enough yet. Pods, I think, had a similar situation. He got some big baskets against Houston down the stretch of that game. Against OKC, couldn't buy a bucket. Both of those players, and again, I pair them together because I think they have the greatest impact of raising the ceiling of the Warriors season because, at age 36, I think Curry's still he's obviously really damn good. I don't know how much better he can get because of his age. And because I think Kerr is trying to prioritize suppressing his minutes, which is something we can get to in a little bit. I don't think Wiggins is a player that is going to score 20 points a night every single night anymore. And if he is, that might not be the best thing because he's hunting shots. He's not playing within the flow of the offense. Draymond's obviously not a scorer. Buddy Hield is a player that I've considered turning back towards. I don't know. You and I were in agreement early in the year that his role is as the sixth man and as the gunner. But if Lindy Waters III is going to shoot 35 or 36% from three, Kuminga can't be a knockdown three-point shooter just yet. Podziemski's going to be shooting horribly from three-point range. They might have to put Buddy Hield in the starting lineup or the closing lineup. And I don't necessarily like it because I think down the stretch of games he's going to get hunted, but he spaces the floor and he makes other people's job easier. And when he's feeling it, he can help win you a game.
The other thing Coach talked about, which I have to take difference with, is that the rebounding is, you can't make excuses for rebounding. Not when you're 6'7" or 6'8". There's no excuse. Don't give me the coach. I love you, but he's guarding guards. First of all, I don't know if that's necessarily true, but I don't care. If you're out on the floor, get a rebound. Cade Cunningham, Luka Doncic is a quote-unquote guard. Kyrie Irving rebounds the basketball. LaMelo Ball gets you rebounds. Cade Cunningham is the best statistically rebounding guard in the game today. I can give you a host of guys who guard guards.
Some guys have a nose for the ball and others don't.
Well, and therein lies the issues I think a lot of people have with Jonathan Kuminga. And it's a do or don't. Either you have it in your system or you don't. You're right. That's what rebounding is. That's what playing defense is. It's either you have it or you don't. And that's, you can't make excuses, Coach. You can't tell me because he's out on the perimeter that he's not getting rebounds. I don't know that that's necessarily true. And even if it is, that's no excuse. You're making excuses for the guy who's at 6'8". Go get some boards. And the fact that that's not in your DNA is concerning.
No, but I think it's also highlighted because like Wiggins doesn't rebound the ball very well either. A lot of his big rebounding games are because he'll get a few offensive boards because he misses bunnies at the rim. Like, I don't think Wiggins, he rebounds better than Kuminga, but they're both averaging like 4.5 rebounds a game. They both don't rebound the ball. And therein lies another problem with the Warriors, which is why, in one breath, I just said I want to see more of Kuminga and Wiggins together. But the problem with it is that they're very similar players, I think, in their approach and what they do and what they don't do. Wiggins is obviously a better three-point shooter. I think Kuminga gets downhill better. I think they're both effective scorers. They both don't really rebound that well for players that are 6'6" or 6'7", for as freakish of athletes as they are. They both are good perimeter defenders, which to me is the biggest plus that they add together, but they don't really initiate offense for others. They can create for themselves, but they don't get into the lane and kick out. When they get downhill, they attack and they take shots. And I think that's why Kerr has tried to separate them so that there's offense on the floor no matter what time. And I think Kuminga probably plays better. I think he plays better in the second and third quarters of games. Like, the mistakes you were talking about, I don't think is an unfair criticism. But to me, it happens more at the beginning of and end of games if he's starting, for example, or closing, because the game is slower. When the game gets into the transition period that the NBA has just moved into with the ridiculous pace that the game is played at, that's where he thrives. I mean, he is a terror in transition. I think he also begins to get into a rhythm in those second and third quarters. And if he comes off the bench, he also plays against backups, which probably helps him a little bit. So, I don't think it was a coincidence that in the second half against OKC, he sees a couple of threes go in, and then he locks in. And I thought he played extremely well in the third quarter of that game and was a big reason why the Warriors even made it a game in the first place. But it just doesn't happen for all four quarters, and that's why, probably Kerr is saying, hey, well, if I can't have Kuminga and Wiggins on the same floor at the same time, I'm gonna prioritize Wiggins because he's more consistent.
I would say Wiggins is a better defender than Jonathan Kuminga right now.
But together, I think they're your two best perimeter defenders, not named Draymond Green.
I'm willing to give him, I'm like everybody else. I'm willing to give him his run and be patient, but it gets to the point where, is this it? Is this the final product? Because there seems to be there's a lot more coming. Just wait for the second act. Jonathan Kuminga, this is just round one with this kid. Watch out, because he's going to put it all together. He's a young basketball player. And I don't know. As the years go by, I think more and more of us begin to realize that this is it, man. He can be really good, and sometimes he just doesn't get it. But again, he's going to get his opportunities. It's just, Jonathan, it's there for you. Go ahead and take it, man.
We'll see. No, I think the other part of this, too, is Kerr. I mean, do you think that the Warriors, because this is something that hurt them, I don't know if it was down the stretch of the season, but when they play small, I think they're probably at their best, but that puts a lot more pressure on Draymond. Would you like to see the Warriors go smaller more?
You can't anymore in this league. You can't do it. You saw it against OKC. They got not only one, but two rim protectors. You can't do it with Hartenstein. You can't do it with Chet Holmgren. You can't. Every team's now got bigs. And while it was good and sort of, trending back in the day and sort of cute and sexy, everybody shoots threes like that of the Warriors. But everybody now has more of a balance than Golden State. And the idea of going small does not work in today's NBA. It's sort of like, again, to give you the NFL analogies, it's like spread offenses are going the way of the dinosaurs. People now are going, they're bringing back the running back and two tight ends. And the NBA evolves, or it's cyclical, however it is you want to frame it. But the idea of trying to go small in today's NBA, to me, it doesn't work, because you have to, at some point, either rim protect or have somebody who's going to give you points in the paint.
Well, and as we move on to our final segment, again, Warriors this week, 9 to noon, every single Saturday on 95.7 The Game. I think we can dig into Kerr a little bit, because I think the smaller lineup that we saw against Oklahoma City, it's different than the small lineups we've seen for the past couple of years, and I'll tell you why on the other side. Evan Giddings and Dan Devone back for one final segment after this. 888-957-9570 is the number. Also, the Comcast Business Text line. We'll be back in a moment.
Evan, you kind of broke my heart.
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
Heartbreaker.
Yeah, Tom Petty.
Good job. Hey, come on. There you go, Jersey Ken. Ken's always giving you a hard time for your lack of history knowledge or musical knowledge.
Not for just lack of musical knowledge. There's many other things Ken gives me crap about. But see, all right, actually, I want to do this. Give me a homework assignment, and next Saturday, I promise you that I will come back with knowledge of whatever rock legend that you feel like I lack.
I got a plethora of bands I can give you.
Well, just name one. You want me to start with Pink Floyd? I heard he's a cool guy.
Well, first of all, it's a band. That's not good.
We don't need no education.
You know what we should listen to? I feel like Steely Dan would be up your alley.
Oh. Yeah, I think you'd
some
like
yacht
Steely
rock.
Dan.
No, Dan's
yacht
in
rock.
the name. I can't do it.
I think you'd like Steely Dan.
Probably. The thing is, so everyone was talking about The Wall. Is it The Wall? Or Dark Side of the Moon is the best double album.
No sarcasm in the classroom.
What about Animals? You know that one, Dan? Animals?
I do. Yeah, give it to me.
I know Glass Animals.
There's just it's a lot of. I mean, they're mainly a prog rock band, but yeah, just a lot of like 10-minute just instrumental songs. They're it's one of their best albums.
No. But this is where the gearheads or the guitar heads lose me. There's so many different niche genres within rock. You said prog rock. What is prog rock?
Progressive.
Oh, I thought it was rock from Prague. Like
that's
seriously,
a 2.
No, you got to be more specific because
that's the most specific you can get.
What about conservative rock, or is that just gospel?
That's yacht rock, pretty much.
What's yacht? On a boat?
Yeah, there's actually a documentary on it, Dan, on HBO. They're like Christopher Cross, I think, is kind of behind it as well. But you know Christopher Cross, sailing, take me away.
He was the guy. He lost like 100 pounds.
I'm one more failed note from walking out of here. Serious. What do you think Steve Kerr is? You think he likes rock? Seems like kind of like a reggae guy to me.
Yeah.
Like low key.
I think he maybe like some 80s rock, maybe. I think he'd be down with Tom Petty.
Well, Tom Petty's, yeah.
Like Tom Petty's not 80s, but
Steve Kerr doesn't back down. So
yeah, I won't.
Tom Petty.
The majority of my knowledge is either from before the year 1970 or after the year 2020. But, you got to pick your spots. That's what the Warriors haven't been doing.
By the way, before we move on, well, no, because you started this.
What did I do?
You mentioned Prague. as a good-looking single sort of, I don't know, are you still single? I never know with you. Anyways, a man who
called me a heartbreaker off the top of the segment.
Prague is a place you need to check out. Don't underestimate the Czech Republic, man. I'm telling you, Prague has some of the most beautiful. I've never been. I'm just telling you, I think Prague has some of the most beautiful, from what I've heard and friends who have traveled that went there as single people did not return as single men. So I'm just
well, so
food for thought.
They didn't return?
Well, they met there. That in Argentina, I have friends who went to both places and were no longer single 6 months later, ended up marrying people. Although it's always a struggle. If you see what's going to happen to you, young fella, is that you're going to meet somebody from another country and you're going to fall in love because you seem to be a little, counterculture. You're sort of like, I want to meet somebody from a different land because they're different. And that's really cool for the first maybe 3 to 5 years. But if you're going to get married, somebody has to compromise. You're not listening or writing any of this down.
I'm looking at Prague right now.
It's just wasted sort of knowledge. At some point, you're going to have to compromise.
This is why I'm single. I don't listen. No, but I think I did it to Brazilian.
I'm telling you, Prague is amazing.
No, I got to get out there. There's a few places on my list. I've been able to travel each of the past 2 summers now that I finally got a little bit of coin. And I will say the most beautiful people, not just women, but honestly men too. Swedes, Scandinavians in general, beautiful people, but Swedes specifically, I don't know if I've met, just a more like classically beautiful group of people. Not all their personalities, but, aesthetically speaking, visually. Yeah, but I'll have to check out Prague. I'll let you know how it goes because I won't be back.
Did you like Brazil? I told you my favorite name of any
Well, I never have been to Brazil, but I've dated a couple Brazilians, and
I've said this
also
to you.
Beautiful
Every
people.
time we mention Brazil, my favorite name of a city anywhere in the world is in Brazil. Bon Jesus. Where are you from? From Bon Jesus, baby.
Bon Jesus?
Yeah.
You ever been there?
Bon Jesus.
Well, that's Portuguese, right?
Yeah, well, they speak Portuguese.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, Português.
Mm-hmm.
Caipirinha. Go ahead.
No, I don't know. I don't really know how I'm going to transition out of this. I tried to grab the baton earlier. Ken, you want to help?
Back to Wiggins.
Yeah, Ken, you want to help me? Back to Wiggins. Oh, no, we've already.
Well, you guys
talking about the Suns tonight?
You want to talk about Steve Kerr, right? You guys were on Steve Kerr before the break.
Were we?
Allegedly.
Apparently. Were you on the show where he was asked what it is that, I think it was Jake that asked him what it is that is his go-to for Thanksgiving?
Mm-hmm.
And it was the yams with the marshmallows.
Oh, yeah, baby.
I lost all respect for him.
Well, you're about to lose some respect for me, too. Candied yams are delicious.
Who the hell eats marshmallows for your entree?
Well, you don't have to.
If you
First
put
of all,
that
it's
on
a
my
side.
dinner table,
It's
you'd
not an entree.
You'd be outside with the dogs. The dogs. With the dogs. Sound like my aunt.
Yeah,
Aunt Joe from Jersey.
It's where the Italian side of the Hawaiian Dan Devone comes out. No, candied yams are good. Now, they don't have to be, it doesn't have to be fully marshmallowed, but marshmallowed yams are delicious. Dude, do you like sweet potatoes?
Well, sweet potatoes I do. I sort of force them down because the health benefits are amazing.
You force down sweet potatoes. What?
I eat them. They're not.
So you don't like
them?
They're
high caloric food, so I try and stay away. But they're good. But the health benefits of sweet potatoes are like you look at some of those. What do they call the blue zones in the?
Yeah, they're one of the cleanest carbohydrates you can consume.
Thank you.
But on Thanksgiving, you can throw some marshmallows on top. Dude, you're eating 16 pies anyways.
I'm telling you, come on, man.
Apple, sweet potato pie, that was last night. I'm not a big pumpkin pie guy, I'm going to be honest.
If ever I invite you over
cherry pie
for dinner,
lemon meringue.
I will tell you right now, Cece is not going to allow you to put out your mushrooms. I'm sorry, you'll probably be
easy,
on
buddy. Easy.
I'm sure the mushrooms would have been pre-dinner for you.
Yeah, don't worry, Cece. I'm not bringing those in the house.
But there will be no marshmallows on the table. Like, you can't have marshmallows. Marshmallows, and for me, raisins. Like, you can't have raisins on like, eat raisins when you're 12 years old, but not for dinner and on any dish.
Well, but people put different stuff in the stuffing. Like, it doesn't. Some people put raisins. Some people put cherries. Some people put, I don't know, just cranberries.
Not normal people. Not people that can cook.
Dude, the amount. How many Thanksgivings have you been to that haven't been in your own home? People are a little bit strange. I admit that. But there's so many different variations.
Cherries in a stuffing.
They're pretty good.
Actually,
That's abominable.
What? Like a snowman? You've never had cherries in stuffing?
Never. What?
What do you put in your stuffing?
Well,
anything sweet?
My mother-in-law makes it actually pretty good. She puts black olives in it. It's very good.
I could go there.
Ground beef and then cilantro, which cooked down, it doesn't taste like cilantro like you're putting on tacos.
So you've never had cherries in stuffing?
Never.
So you don't know if it's good or not?
Don't want to know.
Well, I don't like olives, so God love your mother-in-law, but
marinated? Are they fried? Are they? What are we doing to the cherries?
They're kind of baked in. Yeah, it adds an extra sweetness. So if you don't want to, flood your entire plate with cranberry sauce, you could you have a little mixed into the stuffing. Also, in general, stuffing isn't. I don't know if it's my favorite part of the Thanksgiving meal. I don't know why. Well, Ken was talking about this yesterday. Like he doesn't like turkey.
Neither do I.
What?
I just think it's overrated now. It's like you don't need just give me the sides.
It's been the same since the Pilgrims purged the Native Americans on Plymouth Rock.
So let me tell you something. So we eat crab, all right?
What?
My family will eat crab. We don't even know. We got rid of the turkey. And so if you were to look, because we're like, to me, it's all about just being with family and friends and celebrating. It's not as much about the food. But if you do want to get literal about the food, you're right. It was the earliest English colonists or settlers, the Pilgrims, and when they arrived at Plymouth Rock and for 3 days broke bread with the Native Americans, they were at where is Plymouth Rock? It's on the shores of the Atlantic. What was one of the main
it's kind of a dirty area,
entrees? If you're thinking about proximity to the water,
crab,
shellfish, and venison and deer. Nobody was putting
You eat venison on Thanksgiving?
They did. I'm just telling you that this idea, we've been bastardized that like somebody along the way said, let's put that skinny, ugly-ass bird in our body. Nobody's eating turkey back in the day. You think
you were just talking about clean carbs. Turkey's one of the cleanest foods you could possibly digest.
Was put that turkey when you
Shout out Ben Franklin, by the way. He wanted that to be the national bird.
Yeah, that's right.
Over the bald eagle.
Well, I'm glad he didn't have to decide what the bird of our country was.
Would you ever eat turkey aside from Thanksgiving? Like one of you, like you go over to somebody's house and like, I
eat ground turkey all the time.
No, I'm talking about having it as a dinner main entree, not turkey sandwich.
Well, the only reason that I wouldn't do it is because it is quite a process to cook the turkey. I mean, it's much easier to just cook a chicken or fry beef.
Turducken?
I've never done the turducken. The only time I've ever seen that and it looked interesting was when John Madden explained.
Yeah. Well, he invented it, didn't he?
He invented the turducken? That we're going to have to fact check. God rest John Madden's soul. But this is from the 650. Stuffing linguica? Is that what you're talking about?
Sounds good.
Olives, celery, onion, bell pepper, and mushroom.
And the mushroom makes it happen.
Well, I do like mushrooms.
You go 650.
Olives I'm out on. They just never got along with me. There's only few things in this world.
You don't like mushrooms?
No. Olives.
Careful.
Olives I can't do. They're fine. They're fine. Oh, tomatoes? Yeah, of course.
No, clamato.
Oh.
It's an olive.
What's that?
It's an olive.
I like olive oil.
It's a green olive.
No, it just... I am a savory guy over sweet, but there's just something I don't know. The texture messes with me.
See, if you get into olive oil...
Mushrooms are a poor man's steak, so I can do that.
Olive oil is like... Seriously, olive oil can be like good wines. Like if you know your olive oils in the regions, and especially in Italy, it's like amazing, man. Like there's some really... Once you be able to develop a palate for olive oil, you can eat probably half of the food that you eat, you could just add some olive oil and just go raw. I'm talking about whatever your vegetables, your go-tos, and olive oil can accentuate, if it's good olive oil, just about anything you eat.
I wholeheartedly believe you, but I'm curious as to how one develops a palate for olive oil. Do you go olive oil tasting like wine?
There actually is olive oil tasting.
Yeah, sure there is. There's
just by itself, like you just dip a spoon in and.
Yeah, you know what it gets paired with a lot? It's
oxygen?
No, it's oh my God. It's for when you
a bread?
When you're not hunting for mushrooms, but what is it? What's the
foraging?
Well, it's
farming?
No, it's another word for mushrooms.
Oh, shrooming?
Again, it's you on a Friday night. I guess let's just move on.
I don't take
you can't
trims on
get
Friday.
past
No,
it,
you don't go on Friday nights. It's more of a day thing.
Yeah, all this talk about food. How do the Warriors cook up a win tonight against the Suns?
Wow.
Thank you, Ken.
Look at Ken, man.
Jersey
There's a
Ken.
reason why he is who he is.
This guy's a professional.
Can't be anybody and produce at this station.
No, well. Now, not
Oh, wow.
not like Ken can. Ken keeps us on track, but as someone who was once a very formative and unpolished producer, I was Jonathan Kuminga back in my day, but now I've been able to grow.
Money as a producer, at least from what I remember.
Well, it's much like this show. I feel like during the breaks or before, one of us would walk in or walk out and tell the other, "Oh, what do you want to talk about right now?" And then someone would say, "Oh, olive oil and cleansing palates," or the fact that first-class seats should be throughout every single airplane and not just on one. But as far as the Warriors in Phoenix tonight, there is one thing that I think, because we've been talking about the Warriors' lack of talent or star power. That is going to be on full display tonight. It doesn't mean they can't win the game. And actually, I like the Warriors to bounce back and beat Phoenix tonight if Curry plays. But the Phoenix Suns with Durant, Beal, and Booker, I believe have only lost 2 games. It's 2 or 3. So they've finally figured out, at least so far, how their big 3 can coexist. And I think the glue to all 3 of them is a point guard. It's Tyus Jones. I think his addition this offseason was massive because it took Booker off the ball. It took a little more pressure off of Durant and even Beal to handle the rock. Beal's also just playing better. But the Phoenix Suns have found something that the Warriors have not, which is kind of how to glue their strongest pieces together.
But I think the Phoenix Suns serve as a perfect example of what the Warriors need to be very weary of and not duplicating. And an example of how it can go wrong for you is, as much as we want that other free agent, and as much as we get enticed by some of the bigger names out there. Last year, obviously, it was Paul George. Is that their exhibit A of how when you go top heavy, it doesn't work. And you see it repeatedly throughout the NBA, but they might be the most blatant example of getting stars, bringing them together, and it just simply doesn't gel.
But what if it works this year?
Well, it has. I mean, what if, do you really want to play that game? Because the problem is that what is the one thing we've seen in the NBA this year more than anything else? And I'll tell you, it's injuries. Injuries are clearly something that you have to deal with. And not every star, but the majority of stars at some point have spent time on the disabled list or the injury list. And when you're top heavy and you lose Kevin Durant for a few games, you don't, or if you lose any of those guys, Booker, if you lose Beal, and you don't have depth, then you're very, very susceptible. And that's exactly what Phoenix has had to deal with. So when you're centric on 3 guys and you don't have the depth and you can't go 9, 10, or the Warriors case, 13 deep, there's a good chance that you can lose one of those top, 3 guys, and then what? When you don't have, who are you turning to?
Well, who you're turning to, but injuries always dictate the playoffs in general. Last year, you could make a case that Milwaukee might have challenged Boston, if not for Giannis getting hurt. I think there's other cases around the league in which led to a particular team making a run. The Warriors have benefited from injuries during their postseason runs. But at the end of the day, you need guys, you need dudes. And I think that's why everyone was skeptical about the Warriors entering this season, is that they don't have a lot of dudes. Now, they've had players so far that have played at or above expectation, but in the last 3 games, they've been kind of coming back down to earth a little bit. So how do they measure up against a Phoenix team that when they're at full strength, when their dudes are healthy, they're pretty damn difficult to beat?
Where's everybody at with Kevin Durant now? Has enough time passed where that whole thing is sort of dissipated as far as Kevin Durant and the angst that it would create in the Bay Area?
If what?
Well, just Draymond Green on the same floor as Kevin Durant. Does that have the same sort of appeal as it once did?
No, I mean, I think Kevin Durant is enough removed. It's been 5 or 6 years?
Yeah, but I'm still, you see Kevin Durant out there and you see the Warriors. It dusts up some emotion.
Well, hopefully it brings the best out of Draymond and Curry because I think they're both extremely competitive. But, I mean, I don't know. I enjoyed watching KD and Steph playing together in the Olympics this summer.
Yeah.
Forgot what that was like. Made me think about, if they were able to make a move or make a trade. I don't think the Suns wanted to trade Durant this summer, though we entertained that a couple of shows. I mean, KD's still incredible. Dude, he's shooting 55% from the floor.
Hey, speaking of KD, did you see what Yusuf Nurkic said the other day?
I can't stand him, by the way, but no.
Did you hear?
A lot of people in the NBA don't like him.
He was in the locker room and they were talking about him. And he was talking about their win against the Lakers. He goes, I've been judged since I got here the most. Everybody wants me to play the KD role. That's not exactly how that works.
Wait, who said that?
Nurkic. You want to hear it?
Yes.
Hang on.
Yusuf Nurkic might be, okay, speaking of irrational confidence, that might be the number one culprit of irrational confidence in the NBA today.
And I've been judged, I feel like, for the most of the part since I got here the most, and feels like everybody just want me to play KD role, but with 2 shots. It's not how it works.
That doesn't even make any sense. I'm not trying to make fun of the guy because English obviously isn't his first language. Nurkic has always thought more of himself than he should. And that's where that comes from. Yusuf Nurkic thought he should have been the dude. So going back to his origin, he was drafted in the first round in front of Nikola Jokic.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be the next center in Denver. And then they shipped him off because obviously they found maybe the greatest player in the world right now. And Nurkic has been searching for a home and a role that he thinks is commensurate with how good he believes he is ever since. And in Phoenix, it's like, no, people don't expect you to be KD. They expect you to be not even DeAndre Ayton. They expect you to be Clint Capella, but you're out there shooting threes, making a fool of yourself.
Speaking of DeAndre Ayton, he's now like the 3rd best big man on that Portland team.
They're not terrible either.
No, Portland's got some boys, and they got some big boys who can go. And DeAndre Ayton's just like, he doesn't even fit it. They don't even need him anymore.
The Klingon?
But Nurkic, yes. I love that player. Nurkic is, there's something about, you know what's funny about Draymond Green? There's a common thread here. I'm not defending Draymond Green.
You can.
But Rudy Gobert, Nurkic, and Jordan Poole all had very distinct personalities. They're all guys that no one deserves to get punched in the face or strangled or whatever it is he did to Nurkic. But there's certain guys that just sort of rub you the wrong way. And all 3 of those guys have a tendency to do that.
I'll tweak it slightly because I want to remove Poole because I don't think there's an excuse for punching your teammate. But
no, but he had a personality that I think led to what ultimately, yes, was one of the ugliest acts we've witnessed in recent memory.
But where I was going to replace him in the trio of most wanted names on Draymond Green's hit list would be Rudy Gobert, Yusuf Nurkic, and Domantas Sabonis. All 3 of those players, I think, are, well, number one, they're Europeans, and they're kind of soft.
I read an article recently about Sabonis, how he's becoming one of the most underrated players in the NBA.
Well, statistically,
his numbers are crazy.
Yeah, last year he led the league in triple-doubles.
This year, he's having an all-star type year.
He had an all-star type year last year. I don't think he made it, which people are mad about. It's a shame the Kings are struggling.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not very good. They're 9-11. God, they're only a game above Portland right now.
I'm telling you, the Blazers, man. So much for
big Chauncey Billups guy.
No, but so much for Cooper Flagg headed into the Pacific Northwest.
All right. Well, you want to give the people a preview of what's coming up on Warriors Live at 5:00 before the 6:00 tip between Golden State and Phoenix. Dan Devone's got that for you tonight. By the way, lock in.
Yeah, so we'll take a look at the Phoenix Suns and get a little deeper into, of course, as we talked about their big 3. And the Warriors looking to stop the bleeding. And they're going to have to do it on the road against a good Phoenix Suns team.
Right on. Well, we appreciate you sticking with us through all the ups, the downs, everywhere in between. And our conversations, as always, that we enjoy here on Warriors This Week. Big thank you to Ken Luttrell, our number one alpha producer, along with Dan Devone. My name is Evan Giddings. Truffle hunting.
That's what I was looking for. Hunting for truffles. When I was talking about mushrooms, it's truffles. Truffle hunting. That's what you and I are going to go. And that's what olive oil complements. So that's you and I are going to go truffle hunting. And then we're going to get some good olive oil. And you'll be living, man.
And we'll go truffle hunting next week.
You're going to wash it down with a Budweiser and just ruin the whole goddamn day.
I'm more of a Bud Light guy, not Bud Heavy. And that does it for us on Warriors This Week. We'll talk to you next time on 95.7 The Game.